Welcome to the Bloody Disgusting Network. The ensuing show will change, transform, and otherwise alter you. Good luck.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of oh.
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome to another episode of The Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast presented by Bloody FM, the #1 horror podcast network in the world. I'm your host, Michael Monroeville Mall Rothman, once again in Lisbon Falls, Maine, where I'm catching my breath at Al's Diner and nursing a few head wounds from last week's adventure. I don't know, maybe it's the rush of blood to the head, #Coldplay, but I could have sworn that framed picture up on that wall used to have us losers eating burgers on a hot summer day. Now it's a picture of, I think, Jared Golden. Very strange. Yeah, these are troubling times, constant listeners. Our first real trip to the past has left us a little shaken. We're tired. We're confused. But we are determined because we have a mission, an agenda, if you will, to finish our coverage of Stephen King's 11/22/63. Today, we've got some business to attend to in the present before we dial the clock back to, you guessed it, Tuesday, September 9th, 1958. We also, frankly, we just needed to unplug because this next trip, it's the real deal. No more trials and certainly no more errors, we hope. This is the trip. And from here on out, we're living in the past, which is the aptly titled section we will be discussing on today's episode. Who is we? Well, nursing a shake and staring at a few cold cat burgers are my fellow losers, my constants on this journey. Putting a Band-Aid on her finger, and I really hope that's just ketchup. Jen, say hello and tell us if you're willing to live in the 50s and 60s. Are you up for this? What are some of your concerns?
Hey, this is Jen to the Rage Adams. And I mean, I think I would enjoy it. I would like to visit the 50s and 60s. But, you know, as a woman, I don't know how awesome it would be to live full time in the 50s and 60s. My concern would be, you know, the patriarchy and, you know, all of the limitations that women had back then. Although part of me would like to go back and like without any fucks and know that I could like get like tear a bunch of shit up and like, I don't know, like inspire a whole bunch of women and like take over the world. But then always go back if it got fucked up, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, but I don't know. I think if I could, if I could take back like all of my books and all of my media, like I would like to go back, but I'm too much of a slut for the future. I don't think I could do it.
Okay, so what you would have to do then is bring a laptop that has a DVD so you could watch HBO's Chernobyl over and over again, since that's your comfort watch. Yeah,
I would bring Chernobyl and Terminator 2. If I could bring those and a couple of books.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do it.
Yeah, and you can go to the Strand Theater and stream the TV shows and the movie, and literally just send everyone back to the Stone Age in terms of fear, because they'd see Chernobyl and be like, "Wait, is this going to happen?" And you're going to be like, "Yeah, this is literally what happens." And
then I changed the course of electricity and like power for the rest of time.
Yeah, it would be. That's a good question. Do you think the JFK stopping the JFK assassination or stopping Chernobyl which would have bigger effects, do you think?
Okay, so Gorbachev did say that he thought that the first like fall of the Soviet Union started with Chernobyl. So I think that maybe Chernobyl is a bigger deal. Like that might be something, you know.
Yeah. Especially based on the what ifs that we'll eventually be talking about. Not today.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't even think next week, but I think the week after that. But well, glad you're here, and we'll make sure to drop you off at whatever college you want to go to start to start this journey. I believe that would I think you'd probably want to start in the New England states and gather your army to move down to the South. It might be a little scary, as we'll discuss today.
Army. Yeah, not starting in the South at all.
Not good. And I'll explain for reasons on my own, too. And right next to her, he's having a smoke. He's sipping some of Al's coffee, no doubt, as chilled as the pantry we're about to step into. Flieger, any hesitations about digging into the past?
Well, this is Dan, Captain Trips Flieger, recovering from a head cold. So if I sound like I'm speaking from a well, it's just my struggle to breathe and stay alive. In terms of digging into the past, I guess it would be fun to go back and celebrate the patriarchy. It's a little bit of a different term for me. Really embrace it and double down on it early.
In your Ken era, you know?
Yeah. And just go back and they'd be like, that guy is so cool.
Yeah.
So many horses, you know?
It's like trying to trick the genie with a wish. I get too down a rabbit hole of what I would do if I went back in time that I know I would end up shooting myself in the foot somehow. It's a bit of a monkey's paw wish to go back and I don't know, all the things you think as we kind of see our hero, Mr. George Amberson, him just trying to meddle in the past definitely catches up to him in ways that are unexpected. And I think the same would happen to me. So it's probably better that I stay in the current timeline.
Well, I believe I agree, considering the context that we received from you in the first episode, which you said you just want to, go Grand Theft Auto, basically.
Yeah, crime spree. Patriarchy, crime spree.
Yeah.
I have a good ethical code, but when you're given the keys to the kingdom, I mean,
exactly.
Yeah,
it's going to corrupt you.
Yeah. Well, I definitely going to stay away from you in the past, but I can't because you are the second constant here, and we need to have you along. So just keep a watchful eye on Mr. Flieger here, because I don't want him to get into a little trouble and screw things up for us. Because as I said, this is not a test. This is the real deal. You know, it's like that old commercial from the 90s. Like, there is no reset button. I mean, in this case, there is a reset button, but I don't really feel like going back and doing it all over again. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let us introduce our special guest loser coming out of the bathroom. It's another Dan, but to avoid any confusion, as we always do with an episode featuring the Dans, we'll call him Caffrey. Grab a seat, Caff. Your fries are getting a little soggy, and I stole a few of them. Tell us the first time you became a time traveler in King's Dominion.
This is Dan, Big D Caffrey, and thanks for saving the fries for me. I know they're very appetizing, and I thought they were going to be all gone by the time I got out of there. Now, when you say time traveler in King's Dominion, do you specifically mean 11/22/63?
Yes.
So you're asking when the first time I read.
Yeah, that was my clever fucking way. No, I love it. It's
literalizing it. No, honestly, it was. I think this story is similar to a lot of other people on the podcast so far. You let me borrow it when it came
is
out.
that so? Okay.
I think it had been out for a little bit then, and let me think. Yeah, this would have been about when I started reading King's new books again, because we had that dark period for a while. Not because the books were bad, just because I hadn't been reading between end of college and going into young adulthood. I guess college is young adulthood. But
you were busy writing the stories.
Hey, some people love to tell the stories. I love to... Wait, no, that's not right. Some people love to read the stories. I love to make them.
Oh, yeah.
Ride the stories, yeah.
Ride the stories at Universal with me, Dan Caffrey. But yeah, no, I borrowed your copy of it and just devoured it. I'm just saying what everyone else has said. It's spoiler alert. It's one of my favorite books of his. I think it's excellent. I'm so excited to be here and talk about it today. I've been enjoying the journey of listening to the episodes so far. You know, some people like to listen to the podcast. Sometimes you got to pivot and you record them too. Am I right, everyone?
Yeah.
So
I am right. You are right. Do you listen to a lot of episodes that you're not on? Like,
I listen to every book episode, regardless of whether I'm on it or not. Honestly, I listen to every non-Patreon episode because I'm not a Patreon, so I don't get to hear those till way later. Every now and then I'll have you guys send it to me if it's one I want to listen to. But I always wonder if that's narcissistic, but I don't think it is because it's about the canon. It's about the chronology for me.
No, I
like to track everything.
I try to listen to all of them that I've absolutely read. I think the only one I listened to that I hadn't read yet, but because I saw the movie, was Dolores Claiborne at the time. But anyway.
I'm a constant listener. But in all seriousness, I mean, part of why we started the pod and part of why I love doing the pod and listening to the pod is because it's tracking everything, right? It's tracking the arcs of his writing, how his aesthetic is changing, what themes he's interested in, all that. So it's not just oh, I want to listen to me and my friends talk again and celebrate our success or something. It really is, oh, I'm enjoying the analysis just as much as everyone else. And so, yeah, I listened to your guys' first episode on 1122, but not the second one that just came out. So,
well, get on
if
that.
I repeat anything.
Yeah,
I know I should. Yeah.
Get on it now. Actually, let's take a break and have Dan listen to episode 2 for 3 hours. I'm available at 9:00. But anyway, no. All joking aside, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We've got a road trip ahead of us, and yes, that includes another journey into our favorite spooky town of Derry, Maine. But here's the thing. There's only one place in Derry that knows what we need. A place chock full of rich texts and even updated maps. And that place is called the Derry Public Library.
If you see...
Excuse me, sir. Do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out.
Yeah, Mike Hanlon, that I had to go, that I had to get cleaned up. Tell him. Tell him I'll see him tonight.
Get out! Last chance, told you. Get out! Get out!
Like I said last weekend, and what I'll probably say every episode there on out, is that in the Derry Public Library, we usually talk about the history, the hook, and the structure and format of the book. All your favorite categories, especially the structure and format category. But we already did that. And again, you're going to hear this spiel every time because there are some people that might stumble into the 3rd episode or the 5th episode, and they might not know. They might be like, hey, losers, you forgot about the other categories. And if I didn't do this preamble every time, they would be lost. They'd be lost like Georgie Dembro somewhere in the sewers. Anyway.
They'd be tweeting at you.
Yeah, they'd be like, what? Hey, losers.
Where's the hook?
Where's the hook?
I don't know how to count. Why did I start on episode 3?
Yeah. Maybe they just thought it was an extra 3, like 11, 22, 63, 3, but they didn't see the part 3. They just, anyway. Is that a long way of saying that this is where we're going to actually just catch us up on where we're at in the book? And I know, for my money, the only recap ruler, the savviest synopsis scribe, I'd say, is Jen. So why don't you give us a little rundown on part 3, Living in the Past, for us and our constant listeners? That way we can set the scene.
All right. So we start this section with part 3, Living in the Past. Jake returns from his attempt to save the Dunning family with the blood still drying on his lacerated scalp. As it turns out, Harry has grown up okay, but enlisted in the army and subsequently died in Vietnam under the impression that he had a guardian angel, Jake, watching over him. Jake feels responsible and resents Al for getting involved, but now that he seems like he's all in on trying to save Kennedy, Al intentionally overdoses on his pain pills. This leaves Jake with a narrow window to do the deed before the diner is shut down, and he loses access to the rabbit hole. So, essentially, having had his hand forced, Jake hurries back to 1958 and discovers that the yellow card man is now not only the black card man, he's dead. It appears that he cut his own throat with a broken bottle. Back in the past, Jake retraces a few of his steps in Lisbon Falls and Derry, and despite monstrous migraine and every obstacle the obdurate past can throw at him, he manages to shoot Frank Dunning while he's visiting his parents' graves, so the Dunning family is saved. After collecting his winnings from Chaz Fratty, Jake drives out of Derry like a paper sailboat floating out to sea.
Ooh.
Spoiler for my King's Dominion. Hoping to counteract the murder of Frank Dunning, Jake decides to try to save Carolyn Poulin as well, and this time he does it by paying the man who's going to accidentally shoot her to teach him to play cribbage instead, and it is super sweet. He then meanders around Florida for a bit, places a couple of ill-advised bets, and gets a phony degree by remembering Moby's last name, which is Dick. Making his way back to Texas, Jake checks out Dallas, spies on Mama Oswald, and pays a visit to the book depository. He also runs afoul of some racists and watches a guy shoot himself and another lady on the street. Jake decides he does not like Dallas. So he ends up settling in a tiny town named Jodie, where he meets a little old librarian named Ms. Mimi. She takes liking to him right away and helps him get a job as a sub at the local high school. She also convinces him to produce the junior-senior play of Mice and Men, in which he turns a football a football player named Mike Coslaw into a fantastic thespian. And I just wrote, Jen cries for the first time in this book. Over summer break, Ms. Mimi convinces Jake to join the faculty, but reveals that she has a terminal illness. Before she dies, Mimi introduces him to her replacement, Sadie Dunhill, and the sparks fly. Jake and Sadie become friends as they plan Ms. Mimi's memorial and agree to go to a football game together, but just as friends. While they're cheering for Mr. Jim Ledoux, Jake is shocked to find that the cheer sounds just like something the yellow card man, a.k.a. the dead black card man, used to scream at him, Jimla. Dun, dun, dun.
That's not good. Well, thank you, Jen. That was fabulous, as always. Let's give it a round of applause for Jen, huh? How about this one? Yeah, all right. Hey, how about this?
Jenla.
Sorry. Jenla. Oh, I'm writing that down. That's a meme that has to be made.
That should have been my nickname.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, let's start.
Should we go
over,
back
guys.
and restart this entire series?
Yes, but it'll only take 2 minutes in the present time
Okay.
pod continuum.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well,
And we're back.
thanks for catching us up. Let's ditch this dive and discuss the town's heroes and villains.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
Now, if you recall, I mentioned that the Derry Public Library not only has some core texts, some rich texts, I said they have some updated maps. And I said that pointedly because today's episode, or this installment of Heroes and Villains in today's episode, is going to work more like a road map, a road trippin', road trip with like Tom Green. And maybe, what's your favorite road trip movies? Everyone, real quick. Dan, Caffrey, what's your favorite road trip
Mama
movie?
Tambien.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, love that movie.
Yeah. What about you, Fligger?
I'm gonna go with Y Tu Mama Tambien. That's the...
Oh, you can't steal his movie.
No, it's
Two
go
Dans.
back in time.
We're the same
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
One of us has been sent to kill the other.
I guess maybe Planes, Trains, Automobiles. I'll say.
Oh, timely, because did you watch it for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I watch it every year.
Well, you sound elated. Yeah.
That bathroom scene almost makes me puke every time. It is so disgusting.
It's so disgusting.
Oh.
Jen, what's your favorite road trip movie?
Well, I was going to say Terminator 2 because they do travel quite a bit, but Thelma
That's
and
a road
Louise,
movie, yeah,
probably.
for sure.
Yeah, it counts. But Thelma and Louise is my best. For taking over the patriarchal world, it's Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Y Tu Mama Tambien. Joking. No, I think I'll keep it short. It's Vacation. I mean, come on. The original National Lampoon's Vacation is great. I love Chevy
I
Chase.
thought you meant the sequel from a few years ago.
Well, I did because that does feature Chevy Chase in it. So
it is a sequel.
I was actually talking
right,
about the Ed Helms version. I think it's superior. I'm just joking. I don't
think it's as bad as everyone thinks it is, but it's not as good as the original.
It's
series.
not great.
Well, it's a high bar.
It's not as good as Y Tu Mama Tambien, but
No,
what is? Definitely not.
No, definitely not. Well, now that we've got the road tripping out of the way, let's actually go on the road trip because we've got a lot of towns to explore and a lot of people in those towns, and all those people basically get slotted into being heroes and villains. But first, let's talk about the hero at large, our hero, Mr. Amberson, or to me, and maybe to you, Jake Epping. So if part one, a watershed moment, laid out the foundation for Jake, and part two, the janitor's father kind of saw us staking him out, learning more about who is Jake, maybe even his id. What do you feel like you learned about Jake from this section? Jen, let's start with you.
Okay, I have a lot of thoughts about this. So I am always on the lookout for stuff about Christy, and I've been kind of noting that and flagging it every time because I think it's really interesting. And there's not a whole lot in this section. I think he only mentions her one time in the context of meeting Sadie. But I think this section is so interesting because it's essentially just Jake like tooling around, And I think when we first come back to him, I pulled a couple of passages, like he is really dealing with this guilt of not being able to save the Dunning family or not being able to do it perfectly. And so I have one section on page 260. He says, "That wasn't what kept me moving, though. It was the thought that of Tugga that did that, not to mention the other 3 kids. I'd saved them once. If I didn't save them again, how could I escape the sure knowledge that I had participated in murdering them just by triggering another reset? And I think this is so interesting, and I do think that it relates to Christy because, like, we've talked a lot, and I've talked a lot about reading Stephen King from the perspective of a recovering alcoholic, but like, this is one of the first books that I've really read from the perspective of someone who has been married to an alcoholic or lived with an alcoholic. And I think like this passage like rang so many bells in my head, because one of the things that you learn in Al-Anon is that you cannot control other people's behavior. And I think that's what I see Jake doing here, is he's got this information about what Frank Dunning is going to do, but none of it has anything to do with him. None of it is his fault, and he's not responsible for it at all. But I think he's really drawn to this responsibility because I think it's filling this hole that he used to have when he was taking care of Christy all the time.
100%.
And so it's just so interesting to see how he's like beating himself up about this, because like, we never, like, he talks about Christy going to AA and then leaving, but he never talks about going to Al-Anon or getting any kind of help with her leaving. And so I think he's still struggling with this need to control the uncontrollable. And I don't want to talk about anything down the road because we're just talking about this section, but I think I see him really struggling with this right now. And there's another thing I pulled, and sorry I'm going on.
No, go for it. Go for it.
This is when I put my tinfoil hat on. But so later on that page, he said, resistance to change is proportional to how much the future might be altered by any given act. I had told Al in my best school lecture voice, and it was true, but I had no idea of the personal cost. Now I did. And I think like when you are in a relationship with somebody that you are constantly having to take care of, it's kind of mentally wearing you down, but you don't really notice. It's like a lobster, like in the water is inching up, you know? And I think here it's a much more physical way of kind of showing what the cost is, because he's getting these migraines and his body is getting sick. And it's like the pain inside of this relationship kind of being made manifest, you know? And then there's another section where I think he's talking about wishing Al dead because Al got him involved in this. And it's like Al is another toxic relationship. Like he's no longer with Christy, but now he's with Al, and Al is making him responsible for all of these other problems. And so he's just sitting in this bathtub and screaming because he can't control it. And he learns that like he did the best he could. He saved Harry, but he can't save him for the rest of his life. And so it's like this futility of being able to control the uncontrollable. And I think it's really interesting to see him kind of struggling with this and trying to go above and beyond and do everything he can to try to make everything right, because this is an actual opportunity to tangibly make things right in a way that he can prove, in a way that he couldn't with Christy.
Yeah. Caffrey.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And I think this is a bit of an offshoot of that. I think it's also Jake / George learning to love himself in life again. I feel like before we've seen glimpses of him enjoying teaching, right? Like we see it with the essay he reads in part 1, obviously, but that's following a big kind of almost deadening period for him, where he's just kind of drifting through life. I wouldn't say his life is in shambles or anything, but he's just kind of functioning, and that's about it. And I feel like after he, I don't want to spoil too much. After he, quote unquote, saves the Dunnings in the first part, I feel like he's accomplished his task. He's going on to the next task. And in between that, he has this big stretch where he just gets to practice his craft. And we see him enjoying teaching on a much more comprehensive level.
Yeah.
And also, too, this is in the first 2 parts, but I really started to notice it in part 3. He writes about time and how he's drifting through this world so contextually, which is really interesting. Like time starts to move really fast, and he's able to analyze every moment, not just from being in it, even though these are new experiences for him in this chapter, because he's not revisiting a town he's been to already. Even though they're new experiences, he's analyzing it all through the lens of history that he already knows and the history he's trying to change. And that just makes him a really interesting protagonist. And something I wondered too, this isn't quite getting at your question, Mike, but I feel like, in recent years, especially, King has really gotten into the crime genre. And this to me actually felt like his most successful crime book, even though I guess technically it's sci-fi, technically it's a political thriller, it's a lot of things, but just the being on the road and the details of covering his tracks and the dodging the newspaper headlines and just the murder itself that we see in the previous chapter, I kept thinking like, oh, he quotes Ed McBain and John MacDonald and all those authors he loves in this section. And I almost was like, oh, to me, this is even more so than later Joyland or whatever else. I'm like, this is his ultimate crime novel, and very much feels like that. And maybe it's because the prose is so lean and intentional and direct, but this book actually feels most reminiscent of what those guys are doing, but on a much more epic scale, and obviously with this kind of sci-fi twist. But yeah, I think the thing I learned most about him was just as the book goes on, we're going to see this rapid fire analysis happening at all corners from him, especially as he closes in on events that are so famous in the canon of history. Like, I mean, as we get closer, we see a little bit of him getting closer to Oswald in this part, but as the book goes on, he finds himself getting closer and closer to these monumental events. We're going to see his mental scope and how he analyzes everything widen even more, and that's something that's really satisfying. It just makes him an always interesting narrator.
I agree. Yeah, there seems to be something about the composure of him versus the composure in living, in the janitor's father. Whereas
it keeps him controlled almost because he knows there's like this bigger thing he's working with, even as he's discovering these smaller moments of joy.
Because I think that first trip where he just walks in and then walks out, that was like, oh, okay, this thing exists. And then when he did, all the actions he does in that first trip to Derry, where he goes in and then he gets out, he realizes that, oh, this isn't just a game. Like, you're really playing with something here. He sees the consequences. He sees the idea that it's not just a reset, that there is something at stake every time you're going back, every time you're changing these little things. And just what dawned to me was just like, when you think about even just the ways he kills Frank Dunning, like in the first time he does it, he like waits till literally almost goes overtime. And that's why he gets hurt, because he can't just make that first shot. He waits all the way until the act, and because he has to make sure that, oh, it's going to happen. And I just want to know that for my own morality's sake. And then the next time, it's like the minute he gets to Derry, he's like, all right, let's get rid of this guy.
Oh no. And honestly, reading part 2, I forgot how quickly he kills him when he goes back that second time. Real quick kind of tangential question for you guys. I know what we see happen to Tugga when it does in that section is really awful and horrific, and I'm not trying to make light of that. But the name Tugga, did you just think of South Park with Russell Crowe talking about his tugboat assistant? Tugga. It was like every time I couldn't get it out of my head.
Fighting round the world.
Yeah, fighting round the world. Tugga. Anyway.
What was the movie for the Master and Commander that he was basically they were making fun of at the time?
Yeah, I think that was coming out.
Poll. But yeah, anyway, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And I think we're basically kind of tracing a whole path of evolution for him right here. Starting with what you were discussing, Jen, and also Caffrey Flieger. What are some takes that you saw through Jake here?
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this in the past, Mike, but it's like there is a sense of drive in him that didn't exist before. And I think his first few trips as a reader, you have to kind of figure out this whole time slip mechanism, right? And oh yeah, I go here. But now he's like, okay, I'm going back with a real purpose. And it is the first time that we've seen the character be driven. Because even when he was first staking out Frank, there was a hesitancy there, right? It was, he wasn't sure if he's going to be able to, pull the trigger, as it were. But now it's no, he goes back and he takes care of business, and he's a different man. I mean, he's not playing around anymore. I was thinking of like the DMX, and it's like, you think this is a game? Come on. And then the bass kicking in, and that's what's happening in Jake's world, is he's now coming and he's stepping correct. And it is interesting to see him going back to like what Jen said too, there was almost a quality of him kind of taking care of other people and maybe coasting a little bit, resting on his laurels, and just, he didn't really seem like he had that fire underneath him, but now he has more of a singular purpose. And it's really cool to see that evolution of the character so quickly too. I forget that we're only 300 pages into the book. It's only about a third of the way through, but he's already undergone so much dramatic change in, I mean, what it would amount to just a few days, a few minutes in our present time, but he's already experienced a long time by going through this. I guess, can we call it a time slip?
Yeah. I was trying to think about that, like, cause I was saying the thinny, but that's not true. So slip, I think slip's a better word for it.
I think that was in like there's a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court.
Yeah,
it's a time
very similar.
Slip.
Yeah. Which I wouldn't be. That's certainly an influence I would imagine here. I mean, King is definitely quoted.
Which is that kind of simple mechanism that I feel like the more he would try to describe how it works, the less it would make sense, you know?
Yeah, we talked a little in the previous sections about that too. If you could get lost on just breaking down the specifics of it. And what was the movie Randall was mentioning? It's that one where the businessmen go back.
Primer.
Primer,
yeah,
right. Primer.
Yeah.
Like if you really want to get into the weeds of it, you can watch a movie like Primer and get lost in the complexities. But as far as a reader in this book picking up the pace, I don't need it fully explained to me. It exists and I accept it exists and I can go forward to the story without, getting bogged down or caught up in that. I'm glad that King too didn't over explain it, because the more interesting part is what you do when you go through it, not the actual existence of the time slip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jen.
Yeah, and totally. There's this feeling of like confidence and power. And I feel like he's one kind of the experiment with the Dunning family the first time has told him a whole bunch of stuff. Like, one, this is for real. I can actually change stuff. But also, like, there is a reset for everybody but me, because he comes back with this head wound. And like, if he died back then, like I feel like he's really kind of grasping this human cost. Like, I am actually paying for this, because it's one thing to read Al's notebooks and to say, well, here's the plan and we're going to go back and I've got it all figured out and it's fine. And you just kind of go through the motions of it. But to actually be there and to see the past kind of start throwing things at you and to have to go forward I think he's really kind of seeing, it's just made him stronger. There's a moment where he's talking to not Carolyn Poulin, the wife of the dude who had accidentally, Mrs. Callum. And he was like, before I would have just stopped there, but after Derry, I kept pushing. And I think I misquoted that, but it's like he's gained this confidence and this like necessity, that he like, once he's changed it now, he's got to keep going, because otherwise, he feels responsible for anything he doesn't do,
Well, he comes to that conclusion that ties him to Christy, with the, do your best and let God do the rest. And that's certainly the MO that he's working on. For sure, as he goes forward. I mean, there's a great moment when he's talking to the coach and he realizes that he kind of has to stand up to the coach a little bit for a character we'll discuss soon. But he says, I could hardly tell Borman that shooting a guy to keep him from killing his wife and kids has a way of changing a man. And so he's very self-aware of just these experiences already carving out who he's going to be. But I would argue that even more so than the killings, I think that call from Eileen is the rude awakening you get. It's like, what's the movie where like things are happening?
Tu m'as tambien.
Y tu m'as tambien. That's what it was. No, but it's kind of like what King gets at with Everything's Eventual, right? It's like, it's easy. It's just easy work, but you don't realize that, oh yeah, you are actually, you're killing people while doing this.
Yeah.
And or you maybe could, but at the very least, like that call assures him and gives him that sort of confirmation that he really had been probably dreading leading up to that first killing of Frank Dunning. So I just think that call right there, I actually forgot about that moment, and this is the second time I'm reading this, and I knew that he came back and I knew that Al died, but I absolutely forgot that it was Ellen that calls him, and it wasn't just some news story that he looked up. And I think that's such a smart way of finding out about it. And I don't know, I guess he probably could have done a better job hiding the truth of who he is. But yeah, it's a very affecting moment. And I think it's one of the more pivotal chapters, or at least sections of Jake's timeline here. Go for it, Bligger.
Oh no, I was going to say, and we should talk about like Al's death a little bit, and just I think King kind of being ahead of the curve. It's OxyContin, which obviously has like torn the country apart in years to come. But it's one of the first times in pop culture I even saw it being acknowledged as like a fatal drug. Not that that's something to be proud of, but I mean King saw that way ahead of anyone else.
Yeah, maybe it's like King found a time slip. And
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
OxyContin. It went back.
He went back to
had to subtly,
Lane.
he had to subtly just write the book. He like put it in one section of a book. That's it.
Well,
I don't want to tip my hand too much.
Yeah,
I want to talk about the Al death for a second, because we don't really get to talk too much about Al. What do we make of his feelings? I mean, Jen, you already talked about that being a rippling effect for Jake, but he says, "I wished him dead." Now, do you take that as in like a 12 Angry Men sort of I wish him dead that they, Henry Fonda argues, or do you think that he really does want him dead based on all the consequences that have happened? I mean, I lean a little bit more towards the former, but what do you think, Jen? Do you think he's genuinely hates Al at this point?
No, I don't think he does. I don't think he wishes that he was dead, especially knowing that, the next time he saw him, he would be dead, or he might even be dying at that moment. I think that is more, I wish you didn't make me responsible for this. Al saw something in him that said, I can get this guy to help me. I can get this guy on board with my mission. And I think this is Jake really just kind of feeling the weight of all of that and saying, I wish I wasn't involved. I wish, and I'm going back to my Al-Anon thing. Like, I don't know. Like, I wish I wasn't responsible. I wish I could find a way to not feel responsible for this. So I almost feel like it's a more anger at himself for not being able to resist this than anger at Al,
Do you think when he was looking over at Al's body, he said, I wish you would come back. I wish I'd never gone through the time slip like I did. I wish you knew that. I'd never forget you as long as I'd live. I think he might have said that, but no, that wouldn't have happened because
a couple times too.
Yeah, 1989 hadn't come out yet, so unfortunately he would have been ahead of the curve. But anyway, any other thoughts on the Al situation here?
Yeah, I think it's the resentment of like, why did you give me this burden? Why did you give me this responsibility? And in a way, he took away a bit of that innocence, but you can't. This is the thing that you can't change, though. You can't undo meeting Al. You can't undo going through the time portal the first time around, right? There's a passage and a bit of a rebirth, right? He's moving on to a different phase of his adulthood. So you have a resentment of like, man, things were so much easier back before this, right? But I don't think really would want to go back. I think the way this great responsibility was sort of thrust on him and he didn't really have a say in it. So there is going to be a resentment, but I don't think he actually wants him dead. And I think it's just, it's poetry to like, God, I wish that person was dead. And then when he actually does die, you could tell that, no, he's like, I don't have a teacher now, right? I'm in this alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of like, there's a little bit of resentment too. It's like, great. Now you've put me on this journey. I think that, the call, the situation of basically taking it upon your shoulders. And then I'm going to talk about this stretch in a little bit, very shortly, but I do think the immediate aftermath of killing Frank Dunning is where the Jake that we will know certainly emerges.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
the George, maybe,
or the George, actually he becomes George. Yeah. And I think that's a really important stretch, but I don't want to talk about that just yet. I did want to talk about what that confidence, or Caffrey, did you have something to chime in on?
Oh, I just realized, were you quoting Taylor Swift's I Wish You Would a few minutes ago? Okay, it took me a minute. Yeah.
I was like, what movie came out in 1989? What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, I think there was some bad blood between Jake and Al. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
They're never getting back together, would you say?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man, don't get me going on Swiftie puns. I actually had...
We'll get Sammy in here. She can help us out.
Well, he probably brought his iPod and had a really rough demo of Welcome to New York. So when he's driving by there with his Sunliner, he's like putting the headphones in and
in one of my playwriting workshops in grad school, when we had to reply all to emails to like send our pages, I would always sneak in a Taylor Swift like title and link to the video. It was so dumb. And like, I don't know if people ever one person picked up on it. I don't know if the rest did, but anyway,
they were probably like, oh, here he goes with that Taylor shit again.
One, our instructor's name was Steven. So I was like, hey, it started with, hey, Steven, and blah, blah, blah. And then I linked to, hey, Steven. Anyway. But I was going to say too, and I don't think this is too much of a spoiler because you all talked about this on the first episode. I think, I agree. I don't think Jake means it in any kind of literal way, but I do think it hints a little bit at how noble is this quest actually?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? How altruistic is this quest actually? I mean, I think Al probably thinks it is, but I think he also, and Jake probably thinks it is at a point, but they also, at least at this point, don't, even after seeing how the future has been altered, I don't quite think they have the self-awareness to realize that this is more about them and their individual quest than it is about saving the world or Kennedy or anything. And we'll obviously see that continue to balloon as the book goes on.
Yeah, there's a crossroads section that I think it's in either next week's episode or the one after. I think it's next week's episode actually. I think it's in the titular episode. But he has a Heat moment, like a McNally moment, where he could go pursue this quest that brought him there, or actually lean on the happiness. Yeah, I'm really interested to bring up that debate again because that's
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading that the first time and being like, "You fucking idiot! Like, what are you doing?" Jen, you're ready to chime in.
Oh, I forgot.
Oh, all right. Well, hey,
Sorry, my Taylor Swift bullshit.
no, it's cool.
Can we talk about Heat more instead of Taylor? But
Yeah. Hey, all you had to do
Why
was
not
say.
both?
And anyway, well, we know that Jake's got style, and we know that he knows places, and he's he's gonna get out of the woods eventually. But when he does, I did want to bring up the risks because I do think that with that transformation, for lack of a better word, into George, he gets a little too cocky. He's a cocky guy and makes some fuck ups here. And he's very self-aware about him, which is why I think it makes me like this character even more. Anyone who could be self-aware of their stupidity is far better than those that aren't. What a wise mantra I just gave there.
For little Lisa Simpson.
Yeah, seriously, God, it's like, hey, Mr. Kenobi, why don't you get in the back? But yeah, so where do you think he really, 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 really fucked up in this journey so far? Just because there's a few areas where I'm just like, what are you thinking? Like, why did you do this? And again, he admits this himself. But what's one do you think is just like point of no return type of mistake? Flieger.
Well, it's not the singular moment, but even just like some of the responsibilities that he's taking on, where they're like, we need someone to do the play just to get ahead. We need a teacher to do this, and there's some of these burdens and obligations that he's taking on, and I do feel that it's you have to pass the time somehow, but he's getting distracted from like his main quest. And like, in a sense, I want him to go back and be like a Travis Bickle, where it's like he's laying in a single cot, like no,
so many years though, it's so long.
Yeah. But just going to the gym, working at just nothing but focusing. But he's taking on these other responsibilities, and it's interesting how the past does kind of envelop the George character, right?
Yeah.
He starts to carve out an actual life there. And it's like, you want to be like, hey, don't forget your mission here, buddy. There's a bigger picture here that maybe you're getting lost in. And it gets to the point where that sometimes he's like, maybe I am George now. Do I really want to go back to present day? And I think that's going to be a big struggle, is maybe I like it better back here. Is it worth, what am I returning to? It's school's out of session, right? It's summers. Al's gone. He's divorced. Maybe life in the past is a little bit better than his present, life as Jake.
Yeah. I mean, I still think though that this what if version that you have in your head about 11/22/63 is just fucking unreal. Like you want, I love this like taxi driver quest that you have on here. What if we got like 300 pages of him just talking to himself like Travis Bickle does? It's just like, they say every day we wake up in Dallas, it's hot. But here's the thing, the heat, it hits on your neck a little bit like the weight of the determination that you gotta have.
A rain needs to come wash it clean, just like she says in the Taylor Swift song.
No, but I do. I mean, if you saw like David Fincher, The Killer,
Yeah.
20 minutes where it's just him kind of like being meditative and studying.
You want that?
In a way, I want that. I'm happy.
That's when I turned off The Killer. I was like,
see, but I'm
talking the whole time.
That sort of that singular focus. And if you're going to really be efficient and get Oswald, I mean, look at the way he treats Dunning the second time around. I also forgot how quickly he goes after him when he goes back. He's already confirmed the guy's a monster.
He's got an edge.
But also once you've killed, you can't you've crossed something, you've killed a part of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a lot easier to kill the second man instead of just the first man, right?
But he's trying to find that other self again,
Yeah.
He's picking up pieces and he's going back to becoming a human.
That's when I'm holding like his arm over like an oven burner and like squeezing a fist.
There's a what if now that how they're doing like the adjacent Stan short stories. I want you to do like an entire novel of just and just do word for word exactly up to the third section, and then write it as exactly that, where he doesn't go to Jodie. He actually like thrives in Dallas. He's like, you know what? I like a little darkness in my life. It
just becomes king of that brothel.
Yeah, it just goes nuts. But
just like a Kyle Reese Terminator character.
Yeah,
and Sadie is like turning into Linda Hamilton. She's like doing pull-ups in her bed in the
Do you think there's? I mean, I don't want to spoil anything up ahead, but I'm really excited for when Sadie's put into the interrogation room. It's just like, it's like, it
She stabs him with in the knee.
Starts
How's
stabbing
the knee?
everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason why I bring up a lot of the risks is that I think that there are a few narrative devices that King is able to weave in here. The gambling thing is very curious because I do think that it allows for a lot of conflicts to come up ahead. I think this stuff that happens in Florida, it's interesting because he kind of slips a little bit. Like, he's in that section. I got the sense that he was a little cocky, and then he kind of takes that over. And then my biggest thing was like, I get it, the principle for wanting to return the book back, but calling from New Orleans, or I think it's where he was calling from, or maybe, it was basically New Orleans,
Gulfport or something.
Yeah. Which is literally where the mob center is. And you're going to call back and talk about the book. Like, I get the idea that this is he's got his principles, but fuck that has to be, I don't know, that would make me a little worried if I was his agent.
And I think maybe that's something that he should be more aware of, is the past not wanting to be changed and picking up as readers on these little moments. But it's like, isn't it the tires go flat in his car, and then a trucker that almost looks like a zombie that's coming by, and he's seeing these little things and he kind of writes them off, but you're like, there's something about that spidey sense of like, I need to get out of town now. And then just calling back and finding out, like, wasn't it burned to the ground?
Yeah.
Previous place, and starting to be like, there's some greater force that doesn't want me meddling here.
But do you guys think, because from what I remember, maybe I'm wrong, because this is my first time rereading the book, and I didn't read past this section on purpose. Just because I think I would forget about everything logistically.
Yeah, that's
but also I think it's just funner that way. I don't know. Do any of these don't answer, because if you remember, I don't remember if any of these end up becoming actual fatal mistakes in his journey, or if it's more of just a foreshadowing of, oh, he's getting slippery, he's not considering everything like he should. I mean, I agree with you that I do think he gets the sloppiest in those Florida chapters. I mean, on one hand, you're like, why even go to Florida at all?
Yeah.
I guess you could argue that it's better to, zig when you should zag, just following the geography of everything, since he has time to kill, and maybe it's best not to go straight to Dallas. But he still goes to Dallas. I don't know. I guess it's still a few years later, right?
Well, I have some questions about that, but the time jumping there, because I think that I have some theories there. But I think it's a little bit of both, and I don't want to spoil anything for you.
But, and like I said, I might be totally wrong because I'm just going off of what I've read.
Jen,
I do think that the bet with Chaz is very reckless, because like he wants to keep upping his odds, and it's not like them bouncing all the way down and then coming back up. Like, that's nuts. And it almost feels like he's searching. He's like, well, the pitcher's going to like scratch his butt in the third inning, and if that happens, you'll give me an extra 1,000, Like, it just feels so like, I don't know. I know what's happening, so I can see it as like, oh, well, I'm just searching for any detail I can find to get more money. But that feels especially reckless.
He feels, in that sense, it's almost like he's another George, the George Costanza, who, if you recall, he gets that little Letterman jacket and then leans on his car.
Yeah,
like his cool guy,
exactly.
And he's still an idiot.
Tough guy. Well, and it's interesting because, like, Flieger, when you're talking about these mistakes, like, I love that we are both on all of these episodes, because I feel like you and I kind of approach this in completely different ways. Like, I'm not super concerned about the Dark Tower stuff. I'm like, Sadie, because I like don't care if he saves Kennedy, and especially now that I know what's going to happen at the end, I think I'm kind of reading this as a, like, I don't know, like discovering how to live as a healthy person without like codependent attachments, and like not to like try to save everyone, and just be able to find the joy and embrace it. And that's the journey I feel like he's on. And that's because I know what's going to happen. But like, I look at all of the stuff, like every time he goes to Dallas, I'm like, that's his mistake. Like, he needs to be focused on Jodie. He needs to stay there, or he needs to not go back at all, you know?
Yeah. I think we have a bit of a Venn diagram, because Sadie is also my favorite part of this, but I think you're all right as well. Like, I'm approaching it a lot more pragmatically.
Yeah.
And some of the authors that I really enjoy, and I know Caffrey does too, like Cormac McCarthy, there is something about like a man on a mission that
like
I find very appealing in a narrative. Yeah. And it's, not that I model my life after that. Like, I wish I had the drive that Jake or George has, but I do find this I mean, again, like the Kyle Reese thing is he's going back there to save John Connor's mother. But over the course of it, he's falling for her, right? And he's kind of, you could argue he's fall for her in the future too. But you start to lose sight of the mission, and that's when the Terminator can catch up with you and punish you. And I think by Jake not having more of a singular focus, you can see he is getting sloppy, he is slipping up, and he pays the price for it on more than one occasion. And so do the people around him, you know?
What's interesting about Cormac McCarthy, and obviously stylistically, these are very different. McCarthy's work is different from King's, although they're both in the same setting here, going out west, out to Texas. But if you look at McCarthy's books, Outer Dark, No Country for Old Men, even The Road, the protagonists all think that they have this one mission and they're set on it, and they think everything is on their side, and then they get completely undone, not even by slipping up necessarily, just in these cosmic forces that were against them from the beginning. I think the undoing of McCarthy's protagonist feels a little bit more biblical than King's does, and they're a little bit more monolithic, just in we don't learn as much about them. But it is that similar thing of, no, dude, you didn't stand a chance from the get-go. And I don't want to say Jake/George didn't stand a chance, because we don't know where this is going to go yet. But he does not stand having as clean of a journey as he initially thought. I don't think that was ever possible. I don't think it was possible for Al either.
Yeah.
Well, what other story has King written about a man who is on a single-minded quest only to discover that it's actually
Cujo.
more...
Just kidding. Just kidding. The Dark Tower.
No, that is a very good comparison, though, Jen. I think you're absolutely right. And it's the Roland losing his humanity over the course of the series, right? And maybe if you are too focused on the big picture, you do get lost in the sauce, right? You get caught up in, and I think that's a lesson that Roland has to learn over and over, his trials and tribulations. Yeah. And I do see, Jake couldn't just go back and be the Terminator. It wouldn't be the most interesting read.
Yeah.
But he also pays the price for allowing himself to get caught in this time period. That's what, at a certain point, you got to imagine, like, you're punching the clock. You're, he's getting his teaching degree, right, in Florida. He's getting certified. It starts to become like, hey, do you have any plan to go back to the present day? Or are you linger back here? Because you kind of almost have like a cheat code going, right? Like, things, you're a little more advanced. You have this foresight that no one else has. Why would you go back to the present day and become just a random, like a schnook?
Well, that goes into a great film released and directed by Robert Zemeckis, which is Back to the Future 3, in which Doc Brown falls in love and realizes he doesn't need to go back. He's found what he's looking for. I think there's a lot of interesting comparisons here, because the Dark Tower comparison is so good. And I think that the Terminator is good too. In the sense that I almost would argue it's the inverse here, because I think in the Terminator, Kyle has no choice, because the Terminator is going to keep going. He'll find her. He'll rip her heart out, as he says. He won't stop.
That's what he does.
And whereas I think that there is an argument to be made that the time, as obdurate as it is here for Jake and George, is actually maybe throwing him these things to stay and distract him from actually doing the bigger things that he's going to do. And he actually has that opportunity more so than if he does continue that quest. I actually think time would start bending against him even more if he was doing the Bickle thing, because I think that this force clearly doesn't want him going and fucking up big things. But I think what he does and what he eventually will do in Jodie, it's like little things that maybe they add up and maybe they change things, but nothing is catastrophic as what would happen if what he's going to end up actually doing. Jen.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because in the last episode we talked about Julia reading it from Richie's perspective as the main character, and I talked about reading The Stand from Larry's point of view. And it's like, if I've always read this as like, time doesn't want to change because time wants to do this bad thing. But I think this time I'm approaching it from like, no, time is on the right side. Like this is a force for good that doesn't want to change because it knows what the balance is,
Yeah. And I there's another comp that we mentioned Heat earlier, and the majority of Michael Mann's movies all feature characters who are the best at what they do, and they're determined by the work that they're in, and a lot of them are sidelined by the more human emotional aspects of it. I mean, the killer, we may reference David Fincher, is not, they're pretty much on the same lane as that as well. And, to varying degrees of success, most of them and in a not so great, conclusion. But they all are distracted by this idea of human elements. Macaulay with Edie and how he wants to have this relationship, but for him, he can't choose that. Spoiler for Heat, a movie that's almost 30 years old. But and
there's a sequel. They can read that.
They can read that too.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that him going and trying to stay his on that course of being who he is, he ends up with the fate that he gets. And even with Thief, he stays on that course, tries to stick to his principles. He wants to be the thief that he is, and he loses everything in the process of that too. And so it's an interesting, I think, dichotomy with what King's bringing here. And I think we'll probably want to keep that theme going as we keep inching ahead.
And once again, I love the first episode. And I love what you guys talked about, these smaller, more human moments. Do they actually end up trumping and becoming more important than these big moments? And that's what I mean about, okay, well, are these fatal mistakes, and was the mission worth it to begin with, right? I mean, I agree with what you all said. I find in my own life, of course, I have my political convictions and ideologies and everything else I believe in, but when I think about what matters, I mean, it's doing the show with you guys. It's my wife and kid. It's the day-to-day and those immediate needs and the things that I'm probably going to remember on my deathbed more than even who I voted for in 2020. Spoiler alert, it was Trump. But I'm not just kidding, everyone. Just kidding.
You're losing sight of the mission.
No, I think you. No, but I think you wrote in Ralph Nader.
When Chris Hemsworth in Black Hat had to hack those computers, he didn't get distracted. And when he did,
I've not seen Black Hat. That's one of the.
Mike and I saw like a press screening of that.
Yeah,
I know. Right?
I broke my phone, ironically, not ironically, but coincidentally, considering the movie's all about tech. And I shattered my phone right when I was leaving.
He's in jail. He's in jail, and no computer in jail because he is
even in Heat 2, which I just read. He gets really into the tech stuff. He's very much a preoccupation. But anyway,
he loves it.
He loves
it. I mean,
hey, what was high tech back when Thief was made was a certain kind of.
It was a cool high tech.
High tech was like tools to get into bank vaults. Now it's just the cloud or whatever. Yeah. But no. Point being, part of what I think is continuously interesting with this book, and I guess we see it in, I think there's shades of it in The Stand, and there's shades of it in maybe The Dead Zone and some of other King's work, but it feels very unique that the mission itself is probably going to get questioned at a certain point. I love having this idea of taking what's essentially the quest of the book and just, without getting too spoilery, just starting to subvert that a little bit as we go through, while also still fulfilling a does he or does he do it kind of narrative. And once again, don't want to say too much, but I think, like you said, Mike, I think it's going to be a running theme throughout all these episodes, especially as we continue to go on.
Well, because the thing also is that, like, the main goal is pretty murky. Like, we don't really know what it will be. Like, we know that why Roland has to go to the Dark Tower. We know why, I mean, Johnny doesn't really have much of a choice in the Dead Zone, because considering that he's pretty much dying from, the powers that he received, and he's already lost the humanity that he wanted to have. This power actually bereft him of the life that he was going to have.
Dead Zone's interesting because it's a reversal almost. It's like you get all that taken away from the beginning of the novel,
and this is like presenting him an opportunity. And it's like what Jen was discussing, and what you were discussing too earlier on, is that this is giving him the purpose. And I think it's an interesting conflict, because the main purpose is the thing that, well, we won't want to spoil it. So, but yeah, Jen, did you?
I know it's so hard with this book not to.
I know. It's really is.
We're like Jake. We're just looking at the whole picture.
I know. We're just cruising around.
Can't slip up. We're going to start singing Witchy Woman and ruin everything.
Witchy Woman.
It does make this book so much more readable on second read. Not that it's not readable the first time, but it's so interesting. It's like when you watch, like, I don't know, Fight Club or something with a twist ending from the beginning again, and you just see all of these different things. But I remembered the thing that I wanted to ask, because we're talking about, like, what the end goal is. And like Johnny Smith, like, he has this vision of what Greg Stilson is going to do, but all Jake really really has a speculation.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
Al's like, well, maybe, and he happens to mention Vietnam, which is where Harry got killed. So that kind of dovetails. And he's like, well, I can stop Vietnam, which, I mean, the odds of him actually being able to stop that are a little bit ridiculous. He has no idea if he's going to actually be doing good. He just believes he is. And so in the last episode, this is what I was trying to remember earlier. Dan, I think you mentioned it was almost kind of cruel to tell Mrs. Dunning, I'll do better next time, and to say, like, I'm your guardian angel. And I wonder if he had not said, I'm your guardian angel, or whatever it was he said, I can't remember exactly what it was, if Harry would have enlisted in the army, because he wouldn't have thought, like, maybe he wouldn't have even really noticed that man, or he would have been like, oh, well, that was just a neighbor that stopped by.
Yeah.
And so if just even being sloppy there and mentioning the fact that he is from another time is what caused Harry to die,
He's trying to be, nondescript, blend in, but then you say something like that and the person will never forget it.
Right.
And
yeah.
the ramifications of that, I think that's a good argument. Like, you could argue this is what led to, oh yeah, no, I'll be safe in Vietnam. I have a guardian angel.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the the other narrative element, literally, for Jake and George, is that King's being king. He's having Jake actually working on the novel he started and hinted at in the last section, which he's dubbed the Murder Place, which, based on what we're hearing from, it sounds like a literal version of it. We've talked about King writers before. We have a whole ranking about them. But I think, here's why I think it works so well here. So, like, King, through Miss Mimi, puts the kibosh on the idea of being a writer. Like, pretty early on, like, we get the sense that, oh, this is going to be this same thing that, Billy Summers did, the same thing that we've seen with a lot of his main protagonists, where they, even if they aren't a writer, they're going to write down what they're doing. But what I think gets really clear in this section is that, especially the use of Jake's own foreshadowing, because there's a lot of stuff where he forecasts things that are going to happen before they actually happen. Even when he meets Sadie, he's saying things and confirming that this is going to be a big relationship. And we're watching the blossoming of that relationship, which is in itself a pretty, pretty original way of doing, like, the sort of meet cute. But what I'm saying here is that I think that what's really cool about King using this formula, this style again, is that he does subvert it a little bit. And I think what I got out of this section, and just the way that Mimi managed to have him pivot away from being a novelist and being a teacher, is that this is the book. Like, this is this is what he is writing. And based on what he's saying, I mean, granted, that could just be, armchair, I guess just me trying to be
expert.
Yeah, an expert on that.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I just think that, like, that's what I'm getting out of this, is that instead of, and I feel like in this section especially, King was probably like, well, I could have him write this whole other book, but let's just have this be it. Because in this section especially, he really does, like, talk to us more. Like, it's almost like uncanny, the differences between the first two sections and this, where he's really letting us in that there's so much story to be told. I mean,
when that's what I was getting at with the context thing, it's almost like he's telling the future, not telling the future, he's hinting at the future a little bit to us. Well, no, I guess because it's written third person past tense, right? Then he does admit or foreshadow things to come. Yeah. And I think we're just seeing that, I think just by default, because we're getting closer and closer to the event. So it's almost like he, not only can he not keep himself from spilling the beans a little bit more, but it just becomes more relative, because it's all going to tie back to events that we know too. I mean, that, at least I'm sure he does that in the first two parts, but yeah, like, I'm not wrong in that, right? Like, talking to us more, I think, is a good way to put it. He definitely does that much more in this third section.
But I also think it's King sort of realizing, like, this will probably be a stronger vessel if I focus on this as opposed to how he's writing things down. I think this is probably a better way to expand upon this story, because he does a lot of, like, slingshots here. Like, he'll be like, all right, actually, we're going to take another leap in time, and then he'll go forward, but then he'll, like, sling back, and he'll tell us something that happened when he was in Dallas, when he's already in Jodie and stuff, or he's already traveling ahead. So I don't know. It's really smart, and I don't I kind of appreciate that he starts off with something that we're familiar with, where you have a protagonist that's going to be a writer, and then inevitably this is the writing, and it almost kind of goes back to a little bit like what Carrie was like. But again, maybe that's not intentional. This is all just me playing armchair psychiatrist, but that's what I got out of the whole writing aspect of this section, because it's very interesting that Mimi is so like blunt about like, no, you don't need to do this. And then of course there's even some stuff that I could kind of really get armchair psychiatrist about, with the pseudonym, and oh, you're gonna need to publish this under a pseudonym, you'll never be able to teach again, yada yada. I think I'm wondering if there's a part of me that's always like, oh yeah, I wonder if this is the fears that King had when he was going into horror and stuff like that. But I don't know. Did anyone else kind of notice the pivot away from him actually working on the murder place and just kind of living? I mean, Fleer, you mentioned he's creating more of a lifestyle for himself, but when you look at it structurally as what King's doing on the page, do you think it was a pointed choice on his part?
I'm just going to the Mimi character too. Her putting the kibosh on it did remind me of like Mad Men, when Don told Ken that he wasn't allowed to do sci-fi, short fiction anymore. He's like, no, that's not your job. Like, this is your job. But yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously King loves to write about a writer. And I think the fact that he goes back with Al's notebook as well. So he's even following a roadmap that was sort of written out for him. Right. And it's almost like there's like the oral tradition of passing the story down. The way that Al passed his story on to Jake now has to put his story out into the world. And it is interesting to see what he puts toward that, because he does have time to kill, right? There's so much research and preparation you can do in a day. So I don't know. It is interesting. And even till he gets to Jodie, there is this sense of him kind of bouncing around, right? He's renting, these dive apartments monthly and just kind of bouncing around. But once he actually gets to Jodie, it seems like he's starting to put roots down, He's starting to know the staff. He's getting to know the kids and everything up to this point. I mean, the world has really opened up. The first two sections of this story that we talked about, there really only are a handful of characters, right? But now that he's established in Jodie, the novel really flourishes, in my opinion.
Jen, any thought?
Yeah, I agree. And I think I hadn't even really thought about the manuscript he's writing being what we're reading. There's almost this feeling of like it is journaling, and he's like writing himself whole, and kind of writing himself back together after everything that happened in Derry and everything that happened in Christie, and just leaving his life behind, And I think I love this section. And I mean, I'll save a lot of my thoughts for the next section, but my favorite section of the book is when he's teaching, and I feel like it's such a dichotomy, and we've seen King write about so many writers, and I feel like that's a really great way of getting into a character's head and us like kind of seeing the granular thought process and kind of empathizing. And I think he has done that a lot with Jake. Like if you look at the character list we have for this section, we broke it down by time, places, because Mike did, because that's what this section is about. It's all Jake. And so, yeah, Dan, I think the world does really expand because King is like that. Like, how long can we keep this going? He needs other people, and teaching is not insular at all.
Yeah.
Like, teaching is like, you have to interact with everybody. And I think it's because we know King did teach for a little bit. And I don't know if we know that much about how he felt about teaching. And if writing hadn't worked out, would he have loved being a teacher? But I love seeing Jake kind of realize, I enjoy writing, but my real gift is this, and seeing, and as a former teacher, I get a little bit of a chills from that. Like, yeah, it is pretty cool. Those moments that you get that are really special. And that's how he is able to connect to the town of Jodie, because I feel like if he were just working on his resume, his manuscript, we would have kind of more of a Billy Summers story,
Yeah.
Where it's like he's just isolated and he happens to meet a couple of people and move through unnoticed,
Which is, they could have gone that way, or he could have gone that way. I bring this all up, not, because I think that there's some really interesting context that you could dig, like what you were talking about with King being a teacher. I do think this is sort of a what if, where he can kind of play it out a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's a smart choice narratively, because exactly what you mentioned is that keeping him insular is basically what happens in the next section when he's just kind of observing a lot. And I don't think that this story would be nearly as effective, and especially would allow King to kind of get at the themes you're kind of hinting at of just what are the things that matter in life, you know? And if you're just being this writer that's observing these things and kind of, you know, really focusing on the insular aspects of it all, I don't think you accomplish that. I think you need these interactions in the same way that King does in other epic books that aren't first person, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it was an interesting way. This is my way of basically saying, did he automatically pivot away from being the writer, thinking like, oh fuck, how am I going to do this with this whole town? And I guess that's my question, really, basically.
Well, it's interesting. And I don't know how much of this was actually intentional or if it's just kind of the heart of the book coming out as he was writing it. But like, we could go back to what we were talking about what his actual mission is, because I think like somebody like Stephen King has written books that changed people's lives. You know, his books have changed my life. And so like that is the mission and that is his goal and that is his calling. But someone like Jake, I feel like he is going to do so much more work teaching other people than writing a book that maybe 100,000 people will read, or, you know, maybe even 100. And so it's really kind of just about finding what it is, your one thing from like what Curly's Gold.
Oh yeah.
And just kind of
the original City Slickers, which is
is it the first one? Sorry, that
King's
one thing?
Dominion, Castle Rock Entertainment produced that. So
that's right. But yeah, like what is your actual mission? Is it to be a teacher or is it to be a writer? You know, and that's different for everybody, you know?
Well, and I will say this. We see him teach. We see the wonderful production of Mice and Men he does. His book is called The Murder Place. So then I wonder, like, how good of a...
It's not the best title.
Although, are we supposed to be reading The Murder Place? Like, is it a not epistolary, but is 1122 supposed to be the manuscript of that or not?
No, he was working on two things, because that's another thing that kind of gets into King's Dominion, is that like he basically has the work ethic of King, because he writes it in the morning and then he writes it at night, and they're on two projects, and so that's my question. I guess that's where my theory started on this, is that if he's ditching The Murder Place, then does it just eventually be that this is the story, is his journey, and it was, you know, it's King's clever way of being like, all right, I don't have to focus on this anymore. Because,
I don't have to worry about the parallels.
And it's weird too, because The Murder Place, even what he describes of it in this, even though it's obviously based on the events that are happening in the novel, The Murder Place is such like a not good way to describe the events in 2263.
Yeah.
But hey, if Jake, in the most meta way, technically wrote 11/22/63, then I guess he's a pretty damn good writer.
You just gotta steal an existing like Tuesdays with Maury, or so, you know, like
Da
Vinci Code or something. You gotta steal.
The Murder Place
title.
is essentially it, right?
Yeah.
So what if he named it like or like the or?
I just feel like the title of The Murder Place, even for a book like I feel like cheapens it a little bit. It just sounds a little too pulpy for Stephen King.
I'm just glad that we don't have the situations that we do in, like, say, Misery, where we have to read huge sections of his fictional Misery novel.
I love the bees in that.
I know you do.
I love it in Misery, but I don't want to like read the T's falling out of his typewriter.
Yeah,
like the Murder Place, Murder Place every time.
The murder. I was very thankful. If this is the season of giving and thanks, that's what I felt thankful for, is that we don't have, you know, long sections of kind of like an abbreviated version of it, which I think if there was a continuation of The Murder Place, we might get that. But
what if it starred Nickel Stupid?
Oh, it could have been Nickel Stupid. We don't know. Nickel Stupid's somewhere out there. Hopefully the what did they call the winners? The
winners?
No,
the winners gang.
Justin came up with because someone said if Nickel Stupid is the total opposite of Pennywise, then the Losers Club would be individual winners. Is what it would be. So, it was like an old joke that we did like back in like 2017.
Oh yeah, that was a long.
Dunkirk was probably still in theaters.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So I got a fun fact about Jake. So after leaving Maine, he stays at the Parker House in Boston. Now, this is actually the same hotel that John Wilkes Booth stayed the week before he shot President Lincoln.
Ooh.
So I thought that was like a fun little thing. And I was trying to see if it was the hotel that they stay at in the Holdovers, but who the hell needs that trivia considering the movie just fucking came out? So it already dates us. It's a great movie. I loved it. And then in DC, he stays at the similarly historic Hotel Harrington, like my boy Steve Harrington. But this was actually, it's been dubbed the tourist hotel given its proximity to the historic area. And so it's a real world-renowned hotel that's been there. I think it just celebrated its centennial, I think 2013, 2014. But it was also the first hotel in DC to get air conditioning in 1938. So I think Jake would have been pretty happy considering the heat he has to deal with soon. But any other thoughts on Jake? I mean, I'm sure we'll talk
there'll
about
be many.
Yeah,
as we go.
We'll be revisiting our pal George.
I don't think this is the last we've seen of Jake.
Yeah. I just picture them finishing the novel though, being like, and that's when they learned they'd be friends forever. And murder place done.
Yeah, it's like, all right, 4 more months until, or no, it's like 3 years still until JFK gets shot. It's like,
oh, fuck.
I gotta write Murder Place 2.
He misses the assassination because he has like a publisher meeting. And
What if it like if it did stay the course of the Travis Bickle thing, like you said, Dan, and he is just, it's just him working out and his internal monologue, and then the books, and then he actually starts publishing and getting a publisher, just like, you know, some wise Kraken guy from not Jersey, but New York, and he like stays, you know, he kind of stays in, you know, contact. He's like, when are we getting Murder Place 2, George? And just the whole thing is, on one end, there's no Sadie, there's no Jodie. It's just this publishing fucking storyline.
He's just trying to get points on the back end, and that's like the trauma of the novel.
He's like, I don't want to spoil anything, but there'll be some good bits. Keep that up. Let's talk about the orange card man, or should I say the black card man, or the dead man?
I refer to him as the yellow card man always, but I don't see him the orange card man.
Well, he became
my favorite band.
No, the yellow card, yeah, the violins.
They're from Susan's high school.
Oh yeah,
Really?
Jacksonville, right?
King's Dominion there. Yeah, Jacksonville. Douglas Anderson, School of the Arts. But before her time, so she didn't go to school with them. But yeah.
Well, I'll tell you who didn't go to the School of the Arts. The orange card man.
Maybe he did. You don't know that.
That's true. We don't know.
He might have. He might have gone to the school
Art of a poet.
Yeah, the School of Time. So what do we think about this turn for him? I actually forgot that he pretty much killed himself in this. I thought,
I had forgotten until I read this.
This was a real surprise when I came back to it. What are your theories here? You know, especially since we have the Dans on, who are the Dark Tower experts. Granted, this isn't a Dark Tower adjacent, but I mean, we can argue that
Everything is.
It is. Everything is. But what do you make of this black card and what happened to him on this round?
No, it's funny. I mean, there's no way this is what it actually is because it doesn't line up with what these figures or creatures are in the Dark Tower universe. But it almost felt like he was a guardian of a beam who went nuts. Like it almost reminded me of Shardik a little bit, the way Shardik gradually decomposes. I know he's not that because he's not a giant animal, and it's I get that, but that's like the kind of device that it felt like. So I kept trying to think what would be the equivalent to that, you know. And then I wondered maybe if he was just a previous time traveler who had lost his marbles, and that was it. Not a Fleeger, anything, or maybe he could be a beam guardian. Who knows? But on a Fleeger, anything that you have?
Yeah, and we got into it. I won't rehash it too much, but in the second episode, I shared similar theories. But I almost think that he's like a signpost in a way of there's probably these, whether he's a guardian or not, he's almost like a toll booth collector. And I'm sure that all these little time slips have somebody there, and it's kind of, even the fact that the card is changing, it reminds me of those the radiation badges we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Friends who worked on nuclear submarine, and you could only be exposed to so much radiation in the course of a month, so you had to wear this badge at all times. And as that decayed, it was kind of like the canary in the coal mine. It would indicate, all right, you need to stay away. You've gotten too much juice in such a short period of time. I think what's interesting about also giving him the money, though, is it's like in when you're crossing the river Styx, the ferryman, is it Charon, I think, or Charon? Do you know what I'm talking about? The guy you give him the coins, and that's how you cross the river Styx.
I didn't know he had a name, to be honest.
I think it's like Charon. I'm not sure.
His name's Steve.
Yeah.
Charon, Sharon, or
Charon, I think.
Charon or K.
But it is like, but you every time you give him a 50-cent piece, right? So you're crossing the river Styx, and he is the kind of this guardian of this other world. And it is interesting that, and I saw you put in the notes, Mike, that he finally got the full $1.
Yeah.
I was saying the cost
You got
cutting
your wish.
because I was like, why don't you just give him the full
dead.
$1? They're like, he asked for $1, give him a 50-cent piece. No, just give him the full $1. That's what led to his death. And
He
I'm
might
not
have.
Maybe.
convinced he killed himself either.
Yeah.
It's presumed.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's a broken bottle. It looks like he cut his own throat, but I mean, there could be some devious actors here that made it look like a suicide. The whole point of this novel is we don't even know who is killing Kennedy yet, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put it past anyone. Like, we don't know. There's a lot of mysteries here. And just to go on that point a little bit further, when the article came out about Dunning, it mentions the one, I forget the guy's name, but there was one killer for Frank Dunning, when in fact we know that Jake was there as well. And isn't that the thing with Kennedy, is we know the one killer,
Oh,
Oswald,
that's true. Oh, interesting.
That's a
parallel.
good point.
Yeah.
but the newspaper was incorrect, and Jake notices. He's like, wait, but it wasn't just him. And I think that's a parallel, obviously, of what's going on with Oswald.
Well, and
sorry.
also too, I mean, if we do want to tie it more to the Dark Tower, right? If we look at the Dark Tower, Roland, it's weird. On one hand, you could say Roland is trying to disrupt everything that the Crimson King and whoever else is doing, but then on the other hand, it's almost like Roland's kind of trying to maintain the status quo because he's trying to keep existence from collapsing. Either way, though, Roland is working against these hugely oppositional forces who are kind of against him from all sides. So if Jake is also being this kind of disruptor, do I think King sat down and said, "Oh, this is who killed the Yellow Card Man"? Who knows? But I do think there's this idea once again of like something's not right in Derry. There are these cosmic forces like kind of present at all time and working against this quote unquote heroic quest. I don't even know if necessarily if it's heroic and thinking of terms of good and bad, going back to what I said before, but once again, he is still upsetting the status quo. And I think that could be any number of villains or bad actors, like Flieger said, who would come in and do the deed. I mean, maybe it's something supernatural. Pennywise, who knows?
Like Randall Flagg.
Or Randall
I would
Flagg,
lean toward
or
like Flag or an agent, or even like the
Yeah.
Taheen of just,
Yeah.
all right, his time is over. Let's cut his throat. And hey, guess what? We have this guy Jake who now keeps crossing over here, and he's going to be a good replacement one day for that guy.
Well,
Well,
I get the
wait,
idea too that either characters or forces like Pennywise and Randall Flagg and whoever, I think they view themselves as being very privileged and that they have this exclusive relationship with space and time, that they're the only ones who are allowed to travel through it. I think they almost get upset when someone like Roland or Jake or whoever else can manipulate those same things and use it for their own devices. I think they're very petty in that kind of way. So you have to wonder if like maybe they just did it just because they didn't like that someone else was getting to have those powers.
I actually just found something in my book. It was it's this like lost chapter that was like right after it.
Uh-oh.
We learned that real life, I guess in this case, hero, Frank Anicetti of the Kennebec Fruit Company. There's a really kind of creepy little passage that I guess King might have taken out. It was just him basically being like, "I'm so fucking tired of that wino," and he like goes out and he comes in there and he breaks his glass of Moxie and just fucking jabs it into his neck, and he says.
King did. He's like real.
That's like, that.
Kurt Vonnegut breaks his champions.
Yeah, and then he goes back in, and then Jake comes, and well, that's. I'm personally glad that it's out of the book, but whatever.
Real quick though, because you saying that actually does remind me of something that we always talk about in this podcast. We always say that King doesn't always traffic in ambiguity. He usually doesn't, right? He usually does explain how people got killed or if they're dead or alive. He's not like I like that about him. He's not an opaque horror author. He's not too obtuse or anything. This is, unless I'm mistaken, because once again, don't know. I can't remember if we do find out fully who is responsible for this or why exactly.
I can't remember. Yeah.
I don't think we do. And if we don't, I feel like that's one of the true mysteries he's left unsolved, which I really like. But we'll see as we go on.
Like I'm saying, though, it's the death of this guy. There's a lot of unexplained death that's happening, and I think it goes to the overarching Kennedy conspiracy theories, right?
Yeah.
We don't have this full
Sure.
picture, so it's not just one person dying. There's a lot of mystery of a lot of the deaths here, and we have an idea of what it is, and we create a narrative, but we're never fully aware. We're not fully sure, and that's what's troubling Jake, right? He's reading Al's notes. Al has dedicated his life to trying to prove this, and even Al only gets so far, right? He has to pass the job on to someone else.
Yeah, that report, the newspaper report, almost serving as like a Warren
Yeah.
report in a way, and being totally wrong. That's a great parallel. That was a good one. The one thing I wanted to discuss on that note though is like the logistics, because that's what we do with the orange card man, or in this case the black card man, or the dead man, as I said earlier, is to be able to kind of meditate on what some of the logistics are here. So I like the idea that anyone who's around the slip, as we've been calling it, kind of retains that information, but doesn't actually even remember the memories that come from the changes of the past. Like when Jake comes back and Al is like, and they see that photo with him and the congressman, and he's like, oh, there's a photo of that, but I don't really remember that memory. That's cool. Like I actually like that time logistics there, and as opposed to like him coming back and you're like, oh yeah, what do you know, because that wouldn't make sense. So like I imagine that was probably one of the conundrums in having this, and it's kind of like the conundrum that they had in Back to the Future too, and it's like, oh well, we got Jennifer in the car, so what are we going to do with Jennifer in the car? In this case, it's, well, Al is the one who sent him to the past, so he has to remember that he sent him to the past because he's going to be standing there for 2 minutes. It's a very interesting, because you would argue that maybe if he does come back, Al's not even there, but it's just you could go down so many fucking paths with it. But I just love the simplicity of King basically saying like, anyone near the slip, they're gonna be aware of it, or at least it's somewhere in their blood. Or I think they even mentioned radiation as a thing, like it's like a thing that's boiling into you. And I think that's another mark of just King being able to find like a simple way to explain this. Because for me, like that's my favorite part of time travel stories, is you don't get in the weeds. You have a really cool mechanism for storytelling, and you go with it. And you don't need to worry about the fucking Redditors that are like, oh, well, actually, if if you came back, the time traveling continuum would be split. And I don't want that. I don't care. But Jen, what were you gonna say?
Well, yeah, I think when I see that this man has died, like my thoughts go to, well, he's an alcoholic. And I hate to keep talking about it, but I really feel like it kind of weaves through the story. And like we talked about in previous episodes, if anybody in this town has seen him or is aware of him. And I'm not sure we totally know. And even Jake, like what you said, he might not have any connection to time travel. He might just be suffering the corrosive effects of being near this. And what I think is really interesting and sad is that nobody in town sees him until he's dead, and it's just, oh, this is this tragic story. And now that he's gone, now that we can't do anything about it, it's really sad. And if we look at this as like, and I'm not saying anybody in the town did anything wrong and that nobody ever reached out and tried to like help him before, because Jake does say, hey, have you tried Al-Anon? I'm talking about it more like thematically and more as kind of a microcosm of like the ethics of time travel and what Jake is doing. Because if like we're looking at the end result of him dying being like the tragedy, and maybe somebody will want to come back in time and stop him from dying, like everybody in Lisbon Falls has the opportunity to do that right now, but they're not. They're waiting and they're not doing anything because they don't even see him until the tragedy comes. And you could look at that like Bill Turcotte, like watching Frank Dunning day after day after day. Like he knows that he moved out. He knows there's probably some abuse going on in that house, but he's not doing anything about it until this actual tragedy happens. And so like if we're looking at like, should Jake have gone back at all, then like maybe it's not to wait till the bad thing happens that we can't do anything about and say, I wish I had a time machine. Maybe it's to do something about it right now while we can,
But yeah, there is something also creepy about the idea that when he goes back late at night, granted it is late at night, so at the end of section 2, the janitor's father, when he goes back to the slip to come back into the present where this section begins, there is no one around it. There's that truck that has the lights, that has the imagery of Carpenter's Christine, basically. Where it comes on and just drives by him. But, there's the yellow card man or orange card man, it was nowhere to be seen at that point. So it's like, did something happen to him then already? And then we're just like seeing the results. I don't know. There's a lot of theories we could go down to, but this won't be the last time we talk about him, but we probably won't be talking about him until the titular last section that we have. So it's gonna be a while, I think. So, Cap or Fleer.
Yeah, no, just put a cap on it. I do think because he does kind of exist in both worlds, and that's why he's able to keep some vague memory of Jake. But I do think it's like there's just got to be some kind of power. We were mentioning Chernobyl before the recording, but it's like just being in the presence of this thing is going to have a corrosive effect on you. And it's the fact that the card is changing over time into like a more, I don't know, from yellow to black, whatever that scale would be. But even the fact that it's got the Ouroboros, the snake eating itself on the car, like that symbol is, he might be there for all time. Even if he's dead now, that doesn't mean that he won't be back in the future. And he's kind of just trapped in this perpetual place. And that is what could happen to Jake. We've already seen him now make a few journeys back and forth. How many times are you really going to be able to keep going back to the past and without it changing who you are? And I think that is basically what he is there for, is like to be a warning to others, like be careful because this could happen to you. And is this now Jake's third time in the past, right?
Yeah, third or fourth. Yeah,
it's third.
The first time he went kind of in and out. Second time he lingered. Now he's spending more time, right?
Well, they have the real consequential changes. I mean, you have to theorize, like, what did Al actually do in those years he was scouting?
Bought beef.
Yeah, but I mean, all those trips back and forth where he's just buying beef, that's not doing anything. I mean, sure, it's probably adding more bends, but there's really not that much to remember. Like, so I think of it as like you're pretty much just laying down the same, line of string when he's just doing those trips.
Yeah.
I imagine him staying longer and whatever changes Al did in that last trip to get all the information that he has in his notebook. I'm sure it was very inconsequential because he didn't kill anyone. I don't think he did anything like that. He just was really just scouting. But that was a long time he was there. So it's a longer string than he has to have. But I think the death that Jake does, or George does, Jake, let's just keep calling him Jake.
Yeah, I think of him as Jake always.
I do too.
I never.
Maybe going on forward, we could call him George. But, him killing Dunning, that is a major consequence that I don't think Al had ever done before. So I think that could possibly have been like, all right, now I'm starting to fucking, flail around a little bit. And, this is actually getting to me.
Yeah. Welcome to the NFL. We're no more preseason games. This is
this is it. Jimla. Any theories on Jimla yet at this point?
It's just eerie, it's the only thing about this whole time travel thing that really kind of gets under my skin, it's like, how does he know that? What does this mean? What, and I think that's Jake's first real kind of awareness of like, oh shit, like maybe I might be in over my head,
Yeah.
Or maybe there are things I don't understand because he's going back. And he doesn't understand the mechanism of time travel, but he knows the 2 minutes and he knows every single thing, or he thinks he knows everything that's going to happen. And this is an element that he has no control over and he doesn't even understand. And I think that really scares him, but he's already in so deep that what does he do?
Yeah. The ending of this section when all the gym law is happening reminds me of Opus, Mr. Holland's Opus, I should say, when everyone's having fun at the parade and just screaming and stuff. And he like notices this kid's deaf and he's just like, and he just like, they do the shot of him just like staring at the kid and everything. Like that was the first thing that came to mind. So
don't think that scene's very accurate because, I don't know, Boone, I mean, Jen can probably test. Boone, like, loves loud noises and shit. Like, I don't think he would react really badly to a fire engine or anything like that. So, anyway, just saying.
Yeah. Well, should we talk more about Opus?
What do you guys think? Say this is Mr. King's Opus.
I would say it is Mr. King's Opus.
I actually would say it's one of them. He's
one of them, yeah.
We'll decide in 3 episodes from now. This is going to be the halfway mark, which is pretty cool. But
we'll make that our Pennywise clown.
Yeah. Or how many opuses?
Music stands.
I always laugh because, and I can never find the clip, but there's like that scene where he's basically teaching the class and they're all like, fuck this guy. And then he starts playing like rock and roll and it like zooms in on the guy. He's just like, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. Like, just anyway, Richard Dreyfuss, where'd you go? Let's.
Are we talking about Derry?
Yeah, let's go. Let's talk about, for us, we got to go. We got to go up to Derry. We were here last week, so we won't stay too long. But we've got three cats we have to discuss.
Cat burger.
Frank Dunning. I only got like some quick questions here because again, we went deep on these guys last week. Do you have any more sympathy for him, or do we have any sympathy for him given the timing and location of his death? Or are we kind of good? We're like, no, get him out of here.
here's my theory on that. I thought about this a lot because I thought about Bev's dad a lot, which I'm sure I still need to listen to the episode. I'm sure you guys talked about that last week. So with Bev's dad, right, the whole thing that Pennywise does is that he takes an already bad man and brings out those demons that maybe were implicit and makes them explicit, right? Kind of similar to, I think, Jack Torrance in The Shining, though he's not quite as extreme. And I was wondering about this with Dunning because I'm like, well, was he actually a sympathetic guy that the force of Derry or Pennywise or whatever you want to call it drove to doing this? And it's like, okay, maybe he drove him to killing his family, but I think he was already pretty horrible. I don't think the murders he committed before this were the result of that. I think that was just him as a person. You know what I mean? And so I don't feel any more sympathy for him at the cemetery. I do think it's important to note that although I don't necessarily have sympathy for him as a character, I do think King does a really nice job of driving home the fact that murder is serious business and it does mean something and it's not to be taken lightly and it might have an erodive effect on your soul and everything. But I have sympathy for Frank Dunning, not so much. I think he was a bad man that was made even badder by Derry.
Yeah, I mean, the butcher met his end, right? Or he meets his end, I should say.
Oh,
M-E-A-T.
Meet like M-E-A-T.
Yeah.
Or
it sounds like
Jake is meeting out justice.
He meted out, but I guess the stakes were too high for the butcher, huh?
Oh, looks like
got a lot of meat puns.
Yeah, well, I guess Jake really turned his body into hamburger.
Yeah, hey, Frank Dunning was a grade A jerk.
He pounded some flesh. Does that work?
Yeah, he T-boned his parents' grave. Fell down.
Hey, Saltburn.
Yeah.
Here's a free sample of justice, Frank.
What would
Sliced extra thin.
A thin slice of justice.
Yeah. What do you guys get at the butcher?
Turkey.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, man. It depends on what butcher, man. Is it like Satriale's in The Sopranos where I get a nice sandwich?
You could.
Sandwich going in there?
I'm not to dox myself, but I'm walking distance to one of the best butcher shops in Chicago.
Yeah.
Meat Market.
What's that address?
It's
it's a very
it's on Lincoln actually, isn't it? Lincoln and
yeah. It's just around the block from me, but it's I get very old school Midwest.
Wait, how many blocks? It's on Lincoln, close to Frasca.
You can see in my bedroom from the butcher table. No.
Oh,
if you look at the Trader Joe's in the distance, then that Flieger's house is in between.
Somewhere there, yeah. But then, if you go to a couple of bars nearby, you could kind of
probably find him.
Just a total jerk move, but. Flieger, we could cut this if you wanted.
Well, I'm keeping it all in.
But anyway, I miss the relationship to there's a long running theme I really kind of want to get at while we're covering this stuff, because as I'm reading, the thing I'm getting most nostalgic about isn't so much the rose tinted lenses stuff. It's something that Jake basically sees on his drive down to the south. Is just that he notices there's no chains. And I think it happens every Christmas season for me. But, I read an article today or yesterday that was like, 5 more stories in the water tower in Chicago are basically going to be leased out to doctors or lawyers or whatever. And, we only have 3 more floors for, the mall. And these are for stores that are already were big kind of corporate conglomerates, but now they're just being eaten by the giant conglomerate that's Amazon. I do miss that sort of personality and singularity that a lot of the stores and the small town ownerships have, that, and especially the relationship, when they discuss Frank Dunning in the prior section, we just don't really have that anymore. And granted, I don't want to have a strong relationship with a butcher who turns out to kill his families, but I do miss the idea of you stop in, people know you. Mm-hmm. There's not that cold disconnect of all right, I hate my fucking job and I'm just not even here, which I get because right now just everything's flattened culturally, but that's something that I do miss. And I think because of that, I do have some sympathy for Frank Dunning, because I think he was doing a great man for the community. And, I know I just.
When I have the Full House music come on, Full House, everywhere you look.
But I mean, the thing is, it's tricky. And I don't need to have sympathy for Frank Dunning. I get the complexity of the situation without King having to paint him in any kind of good light. The problem is, not the problem. I mean, the reason we can't have sympathy for him is because his act, which
Yeah.
we find out in the beginning of the novel, it's so extreme, and it has to be because it has to convince Jake to go on because I don't think Jake would have just gone back in time just because of the candy thing. For real, I think it had to have been the paper and what happened to the Dunnings. Like, I kind of weirdly think that's the real reason he's going back in the beginning. And so I don't think there was ever any chance for Dunning to be. I mean, a guy who kills his entire, tries to kill his entire family and like busts one of his kids' head open with a hammer. I mean, I don't know. That's pretty hard.
Oh, it's hard. Yeah, there's no sympathy. I guess what I was trying to chat is just that, you know, nowadays it'd just be like, oh yeah, some guy was killed in the cemetery. It'd be surrounded by like 30 other people that died. You don't have the Frank Dunnings, like, and not just the killer. I'm talking about, oh, he's the butcher. Oh, that person's, you know, he's the scholar up the road or something like that. Like,
milkman. He's a piece of
exactly. Like,
you know?
exactly. The sense of community, I think, is what I'm really getting out of this book. Is just I miss it more and more, and I try to think about how I felt in 2011 when I first read it, and I don't think I was seeing it that way as I am now, because even from 2011 to 2023 now, so much has fucking changed in the sense of what we consider community, what we consider, you know, our identity with as it relates to our, you know, the work that we do, who we are. And I think that's something that it's not sympathy per se, but it's something that, like, seeing through Frank Dunning, I do miss those days when
there's like a yearning, a nostalgic yearning, I think, that you're kind of going toward.
Yeah, because it just feels so dead now. Like no one, and I think that's
time has gone, as they say in the Dark Tower.
Anything else, Jen?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what, like, I don't necessarily feel sympathy for Frank. I think I feel more sympathy for the Dunning family now, even though they are going to be saved. Like, because it is this, like, it's kind of like a Minority Report thing. It's like, this Frank hasn't done anything wrong that we know, or he hasn't killed his family yet.
But he has
we know that
something
he's done
else in the
other
past,
shit.
though.
He has.
We meet him, he's already killed.
And that's the thing. That's kind of like what I was going back talking about with the Yellow Card Man. It's like what I think the lesson here is, it's the tragedy is that nobody in Derry can do anything about this before somebody has to come back in time and save this family. Like, the signs are there. And when he's talking to Chaz Fratty's like, hey, he was kind of a piece of shit. We all just kind of let it go. So what I think is really interesting is that, like, it's an example of, like, don't wait, you know, don't kind of let things go. Don't let the water rise until all of a sudden it's boiling. But I also think it's really interesting for Jake, and I pulled this one section because it is what convinces him to go back and save Carolyn Poulin, is that he feels guilty about killing this man who has done nothing wrong that he has actually seen. But after he does it, he says, I drove back to my apartment and listened to the end of the baseball game. I cried a little, I think. Those were tears of relief, not remorse. No matter what happened to me, the Dunning family was safe. And so, like, we began this book talking about how he doesn't ever cry. And so I think it's really interesting that this is the thing that brings him to tears, other than, like, Harry's letter, because this is like a toxic situation that he is able to have control over. And it's not necessarily the saving the family, I think, that is making him cry. It's that he was able to fix something in a way where he wasn't able to save his marriage. He wasn't able to, like, help Christy. He wasn't able to fix that, but he could fix this, you know? So I think this is another kind of evolution on his trying to control the uncontrollable. And the tragedy is, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but given what we know, like, the real fix is in Derry right now, but nobody was willing to do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, if we just had Twitter.
Exactly. Yeah. You just need to shame all those Derry people.
Yeah.
There's just not an app for that, Derry. I'm sorry.
Exactly. You're screwed on that one. And it seems like the news folks out there just suck, considering the reporting they did for the Dunning death and, you know, timeline 1 or whatever. I should say timeline 2, or maybe timeline 80, considering that Al went back for that meet for so long. You mentioned Charles Fratty, Chaz, as we like to call him. Oh, I'm Chaz. Does he come off differently this go around?
I feel like he feels nicer.
You think so? I thought he felt more of like a scumbag in this.
well,
like
maybe.
the kind of because
I thought he was like a little less of a scumbag. I don't know, maybe not. Who knows?
The reason why is that he's solely being just the bookie as opposed
Yeah.
to I guess I take that back because he was basically hired by Turcotte in the first one to feed out information, but he comes out nicer. At least wearing that poker face.
I feel like it's that Derry feels nicer, and Chaz, as an extension for me, feels less menacing. Because he knows how to navigate around all of the menacing stuff. He knows what Chaz Fratty is, so he's able to kind of approach him from a safer distance. So maybe that's what the nice piece that I'm picking up.
Yeah,
but he reminded me a lot of when he's talking about wagers, a wager.
Yeah.
He reminds me of the dude in the ledge,
Yeah.
So because he talks about wagers too, and that guy is a scumbag. So he says that nice thing about his wife, but he probably is a little shitty.
What do we think stands out in this Derry trip? It's hard for King because you can kind of tell that King is ready to move on. He's like, I know I have to do this again. But do you think there's enough nuance in here to like really make it stand out as the other trip, or do you kind of just think that we need to speed through here?
I think it's a speed run. It's when you play a video game and you learn the tutorial and whatnot, and then if you start it over again, you blaze through the beginning rounds, right?
Yeah.
I think he had to touch back into Derry, but we've already kind of fleshed that out. We need to get to Dallas. We need to start. He needs to move on his journey.
Yeah.
And I think it works too because it actually, to me, it feels speed wise and tone wise kind of similar to all the stuff in between Derry and Dallas, like Florida and everything.
Yeah.
And once again, I think we need that. I think we need that speeding of time, even just from a thematic perspective in the book. I think time starts to feel different to him because he has a telescope view of it as opposed to a microscope view of it, which the rest of us have. And because this is the first time he's going through all this with having gone through some of it already in that new viewpoint. So for me, it works both just in terms of getting us to the next thing, and also just I think it thematically ties to everything else that's going to happen in the book.
Yeah.
Jen.
And I think it tells us what we need to know about Jake too, because it's a speed run for him too, and he knows how hard it can be to emotionally get close to this thing. Now, I love the section where he talks about the house of cards, and he has to knock it over at just the right time. So I think that's what this Derry section is about, is how Jake has emerged. And, we were talking about the strength that he gets from Derry, and once you've killed somebody, everything kind of fades and looks a little less important, like the Losers Club from it. And so I think, we see him kind of gaining this strength. But there's one part where he just says and you already know that story.
Yeah. And
that's
so funny because King even yada yada yadas at one point.
He does. Yeah.
Something. So it's I respect it because I
do too, because we don't need it all over again.
No,
I don't want to see Bevan Ritchie again.
I was even trying to pull my head. I was like, does he go back? I know he goes back, but do we actually see it, or do we get a summary of it? And I think this is just the best way of doing it. I wanted to talk though a little bit about time. And I think you already answered this question, Jen, because you're talking about how once you conquer something, you gain that power. But is that why you possibly time kind of shit the bed on this one? The banister breaks, which is kind of a creepy moment, I guess. But then the car locks and pops the tire. But I think time did a much better job that first time around with him, with the illness and everything else that's happening.
Bill Turcotte. It's almost like the more dramatic the event is going to be, the more dramatic time is, because it's just he's not going to have a whole lot of resistance with Frank Dunning, so he doesn't get as much resistance from time.
I think they call out, it's proportional to the act itself. But even if you think about, I think there's something about lingering and him sort of casing the Dunning house, their lifestyle. It almost gives time a chance to catch up with you. It's almost like a Langolier or something. Okay, this guy's staying in one place, and now we can start to move toward him, right? It's it follows. But I think going back the second time, doing a speed run, it's almost like he's too quick for time to catch him.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But then it is going to catch up to him eventually, right?
Yeah.
When he gets closer to Dallas, or even when he has to flee Florida. But it's if you go in and out surgical precision, I just don't think, whatever, the Langolier of time won't have enough time to catch up with you. But Jen keeps bringing up the example of the water heating up, right? Before you know it, the water is boiling.
Yeah.
But you don't notice it going up degree by degree. And I think Jake he spends an appropriate amount of time in Derry the second time, and I think it's good. You don't want to. That's not the story. We could save that for a different tale. But I was happy to see it, but I'm also happy to move away from it. I just think in general, any time spent in Derry is bad mojo.
Yeah, he's gonna be bad for the guy. Yeah.
Do you think? I mean, time is just like the perfect construct for King. I mean, this all-knowing presence. I think he's so good at that. There's this line on page 271 on the paperback one I have. Coincidences happen, but I've come to believe they are actually quite rare. Something is at work, okay? Somewhere in the universe or behind it, a great machine is ticking and turning its fabulous gears. King just has a grasp on this in such a cool way. Like I think one of the more obvious ones is It, as we've already been talking about. But when you even look at like something like The Stand, where that book could have easily become such a Christian text, right? And in many ways it still is. But I think he gets to this cerebral aspect and it kind of turns him on. And I think that's what he gets some of his best horror when he just leans on like, yeah, there's something else above us. There's something there. You know, maybe it's a turtle. Yeah. Maybe it's Dandelion.
Maybe it's an eclipse, where two women are crossing each other and we never understand what that is. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I just think, I was trying to think of other times that he's leaned on this sort of ethereal quality as being pretty bipartisan, pretty objective, like doesn't really necessarily have a menacing quality, but if it wants to, it can.
I think there's always that undercurrent in his novels of that, right? It's like this sort of just beyond the veil, what's going on. And like you said, it operates on polar ends. It could be either something really positive or really negative. Yeah, I mean, because the eclipse, like you said, and Dolores Claiborne and Gerald's Game both feel like that to me. I mean, I don't love the novella, but something like the Langoliers.
The Langoliers thing stays in my mind. I think I'm so biased because of the film version, so I picture the CGI Langoliers just chewing things up. But there has to be a maintenance, right? And a crew comes and cleans up time. So if you're stuck there when the bill comes due, like you're going to get swallowed up in it.
And even a short story like Stationary Bike kind of has that in a way, right? It's like I mean, not to get I'm just gonna have to say it now. Okay, so I had a pretty bad stomach bug the past couple days, and my system's kind of getting back to normal. And I'll just say, as certain things coming out of my body start to look more normal, I started to think of like, oh, what if these little men inside working on that? And I thought of Stationary Bike.
Yeah.
And I know that's really stupid and maybe literalizing it in a way that King doesn't mean to. But I get what you all are saying, and I think it's totally on the money. This idea that there are undercurrents, and there are things that we don't understand that can kind of be swaying us one way or the other. And I don't think you necessarily, like, I'm not a religious person, but I kind of believe in something like that, right? I think maybe if not objective, at least agnostic, I guess. Maybe
agnostic is the better word.
Or Gnostic, I guess.
Little doozers in your belly, helping you digest.
Or the Little Bald Doctors, which is also a Derry story too.
Which are the three fates, right? So it's
exactly
ties to, like, it's interesting. It's almost like the idea of fate, but personifying it just a little bit more. And sometimes taking the cloak off of that personification, like we do in Insomnia, where it actually gets a face.
It's like you could argue that King was Pixar before Pixar.
He kind of was.
He's like creating, he's like creating
Inside.
Exactly. It's like they're the whole
Out,
MO.
sorry.
Well, the whole
French exterminator
Inside.
That was at Pixar's Inside, which was just what if it was also?
I would love to see that version.
I'd like to see a version of Pixar's Inside that's just an adaptation of the Defoe movie that came out this year, where he's like a painter and stuff, or he's
just like a Lego guy trying to get out of his
I feel like if Pixar did the horror movie Inside, the baby that you see in your utero would be like talking and stuff the whole time. What's going on out there?
It would be Sid,
which one is my mom?
Yeah,
mangling toys.
Richard Kind would pop up and be like, "Hey, you're going to be leaving this womb soon." But anyway. Let's get the hell out of Derry and let's stay in Maine. We're not looking back. No looking back this time. We're gonna stick to the rules of Don Henley, as he says in Boys of Summer. Don't look back. You can never look back. We're gonna go to the west, though. I believe, if I remember from my notes, we're gonna go to Bowie Hill, Maine, and it's here that I think this is my favorite stretch of this entire section.
It's second for me.
I love it. I mean,
love it.
I think that King, you can just see how much he clearly enjoys being in Jake's company, and it's really contagious. And it's really contagious, especially when, King's just able to pay homage to his state. There some of his crispest portraits to date, and especially in this book, I'm going to read some of them in the word processor. So I'm coming for you, WP.
But just to hit on the direction, and I know it's a little conspiracy theory, but I mentioned in a previous episode, King's characters, when they're going on their hero's quest, they tend to move in a southwest direction. So leaving Derry, right? Going to Bowie. Think about it. When they go to Nebraska and then to Colorado. And now we have Jake, who is on his way to Texas, which is a southwest journey from Maine.
It's like Manifest Destiny. Kind of.
That's I think was what he's putting in there, is like the
that's great.
Go West, young man.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I did a room 237 of like 5-minute analysis of all the directions, but I just wanted to hint on that again, because I know some people in the Discord enjoy when we discuss that. But I keep that in mind. Like his journey becomes more important and more righteous as he moves in that direction.
That's interesting.
Jen, what was it about this that made it number 2 for you of the section?
It's just such a sweet little moment, and I love the time that he spends with the Callum family. And the moment, I actually pulled it for word processor, the gods, but when the woman comes up and she says, "What did you save him from?" It's just this really positive way of changing something or stopping something bad from happening. And you notice the past doesn't try to stop him at all. And it would be so easy for that dude to just call the police, and that's what stops it, But he just is able to kind of it's like spreading love, and that's what changes things, rather than trying to kind of outwit the past. It's like, I just made a friend. But I also really love the section where he is on the lake. And it reminded me a lot of the Gingerbread Girl, actually, because that is this woman who's just had this really traumatic experience, and she goes down to this beach, this like conch shell shack on Florida, and she reads all these paperbacks, and she just spends this time alone, and it's a really healing time for her. And that's what I think Jake is doing here, is he's healing from everything that happened in Derry and just everything that he's been through, just kind of being alone. And I love that he starts to fall in love with the past before Sadie gets involved also. Yeah. It just lets us get to know him,
That's one thing I forgot, how much time passes before he even meets Sadie.
And it's like halfway through.
We're just getting to it. And for considering what a major character she is, it's rare to find that restraint, because he could have met her too quickly and it wouldn't have the same impact. But you're right. He gets to kind of take in the scenery. And I know, Mike, you described it, but like the way he describes like the crispness of his state, it is a love letter to Maine. And you can just tell it's something that he takes a lot of pride in, and rightfully so. And I think the way he portrays it throughout his career, it's just like, I can't think of anyone else in history who has been a better, statesman for Maine. What a great advocate for a beautiful part of the country that maybe a lot of people don't get to experience. But I've never been there. I know you guys got to do the trip, but I feel like I've been there before.
Yeah. And when you get there, all that stuff just rushes to the head where you're like, oh my God, yeah, I can almost feel like I can walk everywhere. Like, I mean,
another Coldplay reference.
I know. Well, I got to keep them coming. The greatest hits, it's coming out.
Coldplay, the greatest hits, it's going to be real great. I also too, it's just, don't get me wrong, I love going to Ludlow and Derry and Castle Rock and all these other towns where horrible things happen in Maine. It's also nice just to we don't get it a lot. It's nice just to see King settle in a really serene locale in Maine and just get to write about how beautiful and wonderful it is. I mean, could there be a whole book about that? No, it's Stephen King. There has to be conflict. There has to be horror. But I think in a big, thick, generous book like 11/22/63, he earns that. And it's just, once again, that's the world he knows so well, right, in real life. Not that he doesn't know terror in real life, but like that's more akin to him growing up, I think. And so, I just like getting to live in the coziness of that for a little bit.
Yeah. He's more like Thoreau than Torrance, if we're talking about writers that are solitude here. Jen.
Yeah, I got one more thing there, because it's such a sweet part where she comes out and she says, what did you save my family from? And Jake says, because she said, God told me you were here to save me, but wouldn't tell us what. And he says, Marnie, if God had wanted you to know that part, he would have told you. And I think, yeah, Jake, maybe if God had wanted you to change the past or the future. He would have told you.
I did want to ask about that, like what we thought was the, for lack of a divine intervention for her. Is that just a psychic thing that you think that, maybe Jake had with Richie and Bevy, where they're on some sort of path or something? Or is this trying to confirm that there is a hand of God at the behest of what's happening?
I think it's like an intuition thing. Like, it reminds me of Dick Halloran saying, like, moms of small children tend to have just a hair of the shine, but they just don't realize it. I think it's more of that. But it also could be a divine intervention. Like, if we're talking about the fabric of the world in a larger sense, maybe this was just kind of, she was looking for an answer and got as much as she needed.
Yeah. What about Andrew Cullum? I mean, there's really not much to say, but I really did love the wholesome demeanor that he has with Jake. And
he's
there's
so aw shucks.
Because there's that line about there being two victims and one was in a wheelchair. And I really take to heart that, because it's something that we talked a little bit about on the episode of the accident. And it's something that I've always just taken to heart in any scenario. I mean, sure, there's an accident of this sort, they immediately become the enemy, right? And as we learn here, it's like there is no evil to this guy. He is just a nice, wholesome guy. I mean, like, he let this rando in play cards and, like, tried to do it without even being paid sometimes. It's just like, he's a nice guy. And I think what I love about this section is that, especially now, and especially, I made the joke about Twitter earlier, but, like, we're so quick to demonize people. We're so quick to turn them into this big bad beast, as if they're part of, like, fucking Grimm's folklore. And this is just a guy, and he's just living his life. And it hits that much harder when the wife comes out and saying, like, oh, he isn't going to be the pariah. He isn't going to be, the person that did this thing. It says a lot about Jake, is that he devised this plan to save him too. Right. And I think, I don't know, I love that sentiment. And I love that idea that, like, he actually took the time to think about the other side of it, because there are so many situations where that just is, or someone hits and it's just, there was no intention, but it doesn't matter, that's what fate gave you and dealt you, and you're stuck with that forever. And I don't know, it was a cool parable in here. I mean, and he's good at that. I mean, he's done that, since day one, is basically creating short stories within short stories. And I that's kind of how I saw this section. It's just like a short story here, and very peaceful. I loved it. Any other thoughts? No? All right. Well, get ready. Get set, baby. We are going to Florida, where at least 3 of us have lived. And honestly, the 2 Dans here, very close to, I believe this is a fictional town, Sunset Point, Florida. Flieger.
Near Sarasota, right?
Yeah, he said it was near enough to Tampa and near enough to...
Because there is a Sunset Point in Key Largo that I've been to, but I think this is it's the general Tampa area.
Yeah.
Then we had a fun episode of Duma Key, like, kind of really fleshing out, and King has residency there, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, I think that was pointed here to set it.
I feel like I might be wrong. I'd have to look into this. I feel like all of his Florida set stories are usually near Sarasota, just because I think that's what he knows.
Yeah.
Like, does he have any Miami stories? I don't think so.
He did that one episode of Miami Vice in the 80s that they get. I'm just joking. He didn't.
Wait, did he?
No, I'm just saying.
Man,
no,
they
had a season 4 Halloween episode, and King was
he played a drug smuggler,
Uncle Steve dealer,
Crockett
Big Steve.
Crockett shoots a trick or treater by accident, and I'm just joking.
But what's interesting, I think, also is, and we'll get more into this in future episodes, but a very famous mafioso, Santo Trafficante, is based out of Tampa.
Yeah.
And I think having Jake go to this area where a lot of people argue, I specifically lean toward the mafia involvement, but I think that's going to Tampa is very interesting.
Yeah. I got some history on this. This is some of it. I really dug deep, and I found something that's really creepy, or maybe just coincidence, but hey, as King wrote, they don't exist, right? So before we talk about Florida real quick, though, I wanted to talk about the trip down, because I think in the first episode, we really leaned heavy on just his inability, or his, I guess we really leaned on the idea that he didn't want this just to be a rose tinted lenses story. You know, he wanted this to actually have some grit, have some sort of stakes, and show that no, this wasn't always a good time. And I think there's that line on 280 that really stresses this. He's like, if I ever gave you the idea that 1958 it's all all Andy-n-Opie, remember the path, okay? The one lined with poison ivy and the board over the stream. And he's referencing the sequence where Jake stops in North Carolina and sees there's a different bathroom for those who aren't white. And I think that's just the opening salvo to this entire stretch before he gets to Jodie, of just showing, oh yeah, this time fucking sucked. Like, if you really want to get down to it, it wasn't all hamburgers and French fries and milkshakes and doo-wop. Like, there were some real hells to contend with. And this stretch, starting from when he leaves with what he sees, he always has that foreboding image. And I think that image is a good one because I really appreciate the subtlety of that image, because it visualizes exactly that sentiment of the Andy-n-Opie reference that he's saying here. But to play devil's advocate, I could see folks wanting a little bit more. Do you think this image to open this up worked for you, or did you want to see, like, you know, Jake stopping a shop owner from, you know, kicking out a guy or something like that? I mean, it should have been so virtuistic and ridiculous. But Dan, what do you think?
It completely works for me for a few different reasons. And we've talked a lot about, you know, how King handles race just in general on this podcast, right? To varying degrees, depending on what the work is and how he's evolved as a human. It works for me because we need that stark reminder. And it also works for me that we don't come back to it a lot, because I think it's also important for Jay to get swept up in all the goodness once he starts to live his life in a certain way, right? Because once again, he's a white man in that time period. And that's kind of how this stuff works sometimes. I say this as a white man, you know, I mean, as conscious as I try to be about race and privilege and everything else, at the end of the day, it goes back to what we said before. A lot of the times we do get absorbed in just our own immediate purview, right? And so I don't know. I've read criticisms about that with the book, that he doesn't lean more into the social commentary regarding marginalized people at the time. But it's like, what's he going to do about that? That's not why he's there. I mean, he's already on this big geopolitical mission. And also, I just think that reflects the experience of what a straight white dude at the time would probably be feeling. That's not to say Jake is racist at all, or even ignorant, I don't think. But I think it's like these are the facts. This is the shittiness of living in that time. He's running in pretty white bread circles the rest of the novel for a good reason, because of the mission he's on and everything. So I don't know. For me, that's kind of all I need from it. I guess it's going to depend on person to person, but I think leaning any further into that would have felt a little ham-fisted and virtue signaling, personally.
Agreed. Flieger, any thoughts?
I just always think to the Mad Men scene with Don Draper, and they're like, you can't go out there, there's cops. And he's like, no, you can't. Like, John Draper uses it as, you know, his power. I don't think that's what's happening with Jake here. I think it's good that he acknowledges it, but I do agree with Caffrey. It's like, it would just bog it down, and that can be handled by other people who are more familiar with that topic. But I do think it's good that King acknowledges it, though. It's like, you can't just ignore it. But I also think it represents that, you know, when he gets to Dallas, he says, like, I don't like Dallas. There's a bad vibe here. So you're seeing that it's getting, the terrains he's starting to cover are getting more dangerous.
Yes.
You know, he's leaving the safety of Maine. He's going into the crazy world.
Well, and also too, I should say, even though, and for all we know, I mean, the race issue maybe does come up in later sections, I wouldn't say that the general dark underbelly of the 50s goes away. I mean, we even see it's on a much less severe scale, but we see it with the high school play, the way the coach talks about football players and theater people, and you know, alludes to homosexuality and things like that. And once again, these things all still exist, by the way.
They do,
but obviously not as obviously they don't exist as drastically. They are. It is obviously frowned upon a little bit more.
It's
now,
not as pronounced or literal, glaring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think and we even see that in Derry. I mean, I know Derry is dark for reasons that go beyond just the time period, but I do think King is, throughout the whole novel, playing with this idea that, the 50s, like any time period, had this dark undercurrent to them, but also had things to love too. And just because the dark undercurrent is there, does that mean we can't love the poodle skirts and the rock and roll and the whatever else, the milkshakes, the cat burgers, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Well, I think it shows like the danger of nostalgia is that we idealize these time periods and we forget that, yeah, like it was Leave It to Beaver, but there was a whole other side of society. And it's not that things were okay then that aren't okay now. It's that the people that were hurt didn't have a voice and weren't able to say it. And I do really like this inclusion. And I don't think I need more because it would feel like virtue signaling. It wouldn't feel, because this character, like if I think about this section as and where Jake goes in Jodie as a part of Jake's like overall personal journey or personal like growth, like he is in a place where he wants a life with no friction. You know, he's coming out of this rocky marriage, and he's coming from this time where he didn't really have much going for him or much to live for, and he just wants to hide his head in the sand and be in a place where things feel okay for a while.
Yeah.
And I think there's privilege in him being able to do that, but it also, like, I think this shows the temptation to do that, and we understand why he would want to, and it's just, he is lucky that he is able to do this. But like Julia asked in our last episode if a woman would be able to go on this mission, and I don't think they would. And we could say the same thing, would a person of color be able to go on this mission? And there's no way, because they wouldn't be able to blend in the way Jake can. They wouldn't be able to pass as like a real estate agent. You know, it's just, so it is a privilege that he has, but also I understand why he wants to take it, you know?
Yeah. And I think the reason why I love the subtlety of that image is that that's just kind of how life works.
Yeah.
Like it's just the small things that say large things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of what I love about this particular image of the bathroom, you know, behind the gas station, and how he's able to draw on it and kind of tie it into the sort of, you know, all encompassing eye that we talked about earlier, and just how there is some sort of darker danger there, and not everything is all safe. And I think that's a timeless sentiment, to be honest with you. Even if you're not looking back in the past, I think that's something that we can take to the future too, is that, you know, as wonderful as life can be, at any moment's glance, there's a flip side to the coin always.
Yeah.
And I kind of love how he you know, bleeds it into this. But
Yeah.
what are you going to say?
Well, and in a way that doesn't feel exploitative too. Like, we see the image of this bathroom. We don't see anyone having to suffer through using it, you know? And I feel like a scene where, like you said, he had to like save somebody would like present Black pain in a way that we don't need to see to understand the racist undercurrent. You know, we see the white people being bad. We don't have to see anyone suffering because of it, you know?
Like if they had written if he had written the chapter, it's like he pulls up, sees the gas station attendant giving some guy, you know, a man of color, like, you know, some shit. And he's like, hey, back off.
Yeah.
And then he's like, turns to him, he's
Opens
like,
the door. He's like, no, after you.
Yeah. And then he's like, hey, do you need a ride? And then
He
you know,
takes the sign and breaks it over his knee.
Right.
Like, it just would be like, all right.
And something I do, because you were saying before, Mike, about how obviously that a lot of that exists today, and some of these things transcend time. And it's interesting, because what made me think of was the benefit of showing the 50s is that there is this like sugar codedness to it, right? And like everything's very coded, and then we see like, I like that we see this idealistic scene right before we see the bathroom scene. And I don't know, it just reminded me of like, I don't know, maybe this is a weird comparison, but when all the George Floyd protests were happening, and I was still on Facebook, and that's part of the reason why I got off Facebook, you know, I would see older people I knew and relatives who I won't name, you know, posting like the most vile racist shit about, you know, Blue Lives Matter, whatever else. And I won't go into what exactly is, I mean, but just like not even implicitly racist, just explicit, just trash. And then literally the next like 45 seconds later, posting like a kitty meme or something, like a fun dog video.
Here's my grandson. He's
no,
6
and that
weeks old.
it was so disturbing to me. I mean, the following with the cat meme was almost more disturbing, right? Because like, oh, these are people who consider themselves these wholesome beacons of society. But anyway, I think that's kind of like the 21st century version of this, right? Like this kind of really saccharine exterior of cheesiness almost, and then just this like horrible racially motivated violence underneath it. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a theme that still exists today and definitely transcends the decade in which the book takes place.
Let's talk about Sunset Point a little bit. He spends a lot of time here. You know, he gets his degree, as we talked about earlier, with the multiple choice questionnaire, which God, that kills me because the reason why I haven't got my teaching degree is because the amount of tests and seminars. It's like, oh God, kill me. So do you think that this time like is too brisk? Like, did we need more? Like my theory here that I mentioned or kind of hinted at earlier is that I feel like King probably had like a good 40, 50 pages here maybe. And he had to cut it because, for timing. Maybe that's not the truth, but it just does feel like there are segments that he could lean into that maybe he realized, I'm probably going to be doing a lot of this in Jodie. Maybe I don't digress on any of it. But even then, like, it is kind of jarring to all of a sudden be at his destination by the end of the section and like 3 years have gone by. Does it, and I think a large section, like a large chunk of that is here in Florida, which I always remember that he went to Florida, but I never really remember the specifics. And I get why, because it's only like 3 or 4 pages. It's very short.
I mean, when I was writing the synopsis, I had to go back and look to remember what he actually did there. And other than like the firebombing thing and the library, like making friends with the librarian, like that's all I remembered. And I don't think we need any more. It reminds me of the section in Bag of Bones where he's talking about like all of this charity work that Jim did. And Tabby was like, I don't need to know this. So he cut it out. I think you're right. I don't really care about anything he does in Florida. I want him to get to Texas because we did just see him do a lot of this in Derry and Lisbon Falls,
Yeah. I mean,
I think he has to place bets. He has to kind of be a, rambling man. Walking dude, as it were. But can't just stay in one place and post up because it's going to catch up to him. So I do think of like staying one step ahead of time, not burning all the Texas bookies all at once, but kind of chipping away, making a few dimes here and there,
Yeah.
It just, I think it's covered for the appropriate amount of time. It does seem like a kind of like jaunty, but I don't mind it. And I think, Mike, you should talk about some of the mafia connections that we were getting into. I think there is a significance there.
Yeah, there's a reason. So Eduardo Gutierrez, who's his bookie in this, mentions that he's got a connection to Carlos Marcello, who was a real life Italian American crime boss of the New Orleans crime family from 1947 to 1983. I think it's pretty clever that he weaves this in to Marcello, because along with Santo Trafficante Jr. and Sam Giancana, I absolutely butchered that last name.
Yes,
They're going to kill me.
They might, because
You're not part of the family, Mike.
I'm not part of the family. I can't even do a Tony Soprano impersonation. So
hey, gabagool.
Every time I do it, it just sounds like someone who has like a burning, pizza roll on his tongue.
She was abusive to the staff.
Yeah, you have a really good one. You have a good one. But anyway, these three guys were under the suspicion by G. Robert Blakey, who is still alive, by the way. He was an attorney, or is an attorney, and he was a lawmaker, but he was actually instrumental in creating the RICO Act. As everyone who saw Dark Knight remembers what the RICO Act is.
And Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, it's true.
Was it racketeering? And what's the rest of it? I don't remember.
Racketeering in cold blood.
Outfits,
yes. Yeah, I mean, and anybody's following current politics right now.
Racketeering International Conspiracy. What, man?
Well, if we only had a way to just fucking Google this right now.
I know.
Racketeer influence.
Hey, we're like Jake in the past.
Yeah. Anyway,
Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act.
There we go.
We knew the first word.
So he was instrumental in creating that, and so it should be noted that he believed that Marcello and the two I mentioned, they had conspired to kill JFK. Or they were part of the assassination in retaliation for all the federal investigations and prosecutions that threatened both the power and all the,
and the connection to the Kennedy family, though. So JFK's father made a lot of money through bootlegging and vice operations during Prohibition. And that's sort of how their family, like, they're not quite as old money a family as we think they are. A lot of that wealth, I believe it's Joe Kennedy, right? The father. But he created a lot of that wealth, and the mafia helped him do that. So then when his son and his other son, the attorney general, started
especially
cracking
Robert
down,
Kennedy,
so they started cracking down on it, and it was kind of like, hey, we made this money together. Why are you coming after us? And I think that provides a very strong motive to seek revenge. And obviously, we know how it worked out for the Kennedy brothers, but I think presence in Tampa is very significant with Trafficante, because even on my own research into Kennedy assassination, it seems like there were Lee Harvey Oswald types in various cities across America. And
that's
Tampa
what I've been hearing.
One that had, there were some handlers that were kind of setting these guys up and preparing them. Because as Kennedy was going to Texas, he was also supposed to be making stops, I believe, in New Orleans and Tampa.
Yeah, it's a strong connection, and I think that it's clever that he puts it in here, because I think it's interesting, because as we discussed in the first episode, and as Randall's been discussing in the accompanying episodes that he's been interviewing, especially the Brendan James episode, which is available now, King does away with a lot of the conspiracy stuff, although he still acknowledges it. And I think this is an interesting acknowledgement by putting this character here, because it is very curious as to why Florida is here. I mean, there's a sentiment that he is from around that area, but when you think about it from Jake's point of view, I mean, it's just a very strange detour.
Yeah. Well, and it's in part because of the presence of Cuba.
Yeah.
Which Fidel Castro, that's another conspiracy. But Trafficante had business dealings in Cuba. If you remember from The Godfather, when they had the Havana meeting, a lot of the mafia leaders met and were going to open casinos and basically use Cuba as like a financial base just offshore. So when Castro came in and kicked all those people out during the revolution, there's a lot of, lasting sentiments of, hey, you took away what could have been ours.
Yeah.
So the fact that, Trafficante doesn't like Castro, he doesn't like the Kennedys, Castro doesn't like the Kennedys. There's just a lot of strange bedfellows here.
Yeah. Who's the person that said he was like the most murderable person? Is there somebody that said it?
Oliver Stone?
Probably. But I remember reading that somewhere in the research or whatever. But so because King hints at the Oswald connection through Marcello, I really did want to look up the Eduardo name. And I found three significant or mildly significant Eduardo Gutierrez's. So the first I found was a Bolivian football goalkeeper who played for Bolivia in the 1950 FIFA World Cup. He's now deceased. I don't think that's it. The second is a 19th century Argentinian writer of the same name. And from Wiki, quote, his works of gaucho-esque nature acquired great popularity, especially Juan Morera, a novel successfully adapted to stage in 1884 that popularized the gaucho as a protagonist in Argentine theater. I mean, given the literary connect, maybe, doubtful. The third one is really cool. So when I put in the name, I found there was like an anniversary piece on USA Today from 2013, and they spoke to a then 70-year-old named Eduardo Gutierrez, and they write, quote, he had no idea that sliver of history had occurred just outside his home when he bought the 3-bedroom house on East 10th Street 17 years ago. He soon found out, though, when documentary film crews repeatedly showed up to the film in the corner. He said he remembers being a 20-year-old shoemaker in Guanajuato, Mexico, when he heard of Kennedy's assassination. The whole town mourned. It's very tragic, Gutierrez said. At the same time, it's something we should never forget. And I looked up the East 10th, and it seems that's the history that they're discussing, in obviously in addition to the assassination, is the fact that Officer Tippit was murdered there by Oswald. So it's not the apartment where King might have met this person, at least I don't believe. So it's kind of weird that this character in a 2013 article, so 2 years after this book has been published, was living around that area. And I mean, I doubt King knew this. I mean, maybe he did. I don't know, but it's just kind of an eerie coincidence. He's been a part of this kind of fabric of history, or at least in terms of the looking back of it all. But I don't know. I thought that was really spooky.
Yeah.
Anything else about Florida? No?
It's a weird place, man. What can I say?
Did it make you nostalgic a little bit, the Dans, considering
it brought me back to my days with my bookie in Central Florida.
No, I mean, it did. I was down in Florida a little while ago to workshop a play in Tampa, and it had been a minute since I'd been back, and I always think of, the song I Love LA by Randy Newman.
Oh, yeah. I love that song.
And, me too. And people always say, oh, yeah, you're kind of making fun of LA. And he always says, I guess I'm a little bit, but also, I don't know. He's like driving in a convertible, top down, the Beach Boys playing sounds pretty good to me, right?
Yeah.
Like he was like, no, it's also kind of awesome and fun to drive around LA. And that was kind of the feeling I had being back in Florida. I mean, we did a lot of meaningful things too, but just driving around, I was like, oh, it really is kind of easy here, right? And I feel like this brought me back to that, even though it's coupled with a lot of unsavory elements that we brought up. I mean, it still did lean into that, like, yeah, it's kind of just laid back down in Florida. And so, yeah, it did make me a little bit nostalgic for it.
What about you, Fligger? Other than the bookie?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't hit as much as like Do McKee, obviously. But yeah, I'm always happy to hear Florida, especially like that region where I spent so much of my formative years.
Do you want to give your exact address to that one also?
Yeah, go ahead and send fan mail to my.
Yeah, it's a documentary to your street corner.
I'm not gonna say that as a joke, because your parents live there, but
your dad just like
give your
calls,
neighborhood.
Like, yeah. Well, Danny, I'm getting all these mails from these idiots. All right, let's hit the road and let's go to Dallas, Texas.
Big D.
The Big D. I'm gonna read a description.
It is referred to as the Big D earlier.
That was my nickname for the episode. I was gonna say Dallas Caffrey, but I went with Big D.
I hate Dallas.
Was a use of it.
Not only because it took.
Not a huge fan of Dallas either, to be honest.
I'm not a big fan because
don't want to go.
Well, I was a Buffalo Bills fan growing up. And,
I shouldn't say it. We probably have listeners in Dallas. I'm not trying to rag on their city or anything. But I live in Texas.
Wonder if Dallas is evil. If you live in Dallas, tell us.
There's a lot of energy concern, right? So whenever you have that kind of industry, you're going to have some shady figures, Yeah,
it's all in good fun, everyone. I lived in Texas for a long time. I like Texas.
Caffrey thinks he's better than you, is what he's trying to say.
Well, there's not many characters here, unless you all want to discuss that asshole landlord Ray Mac Johnson. But there are plenty of interactions. So throughout his journey from Florida to Dallas, King builds more on that North Carolina image by tossing Jake into a number of pretty precarious situations that would probably shatter anyone's rose-tinted lenses. There's the black-only bar in Gulfport that kicks it off, where he's not allowed in. There's Jake's first stop on Magazine Street to see Oswald's future apartment. There's Dallas giving off the vibes of Derry, particularly that feeling of how it treated not just him as another, but everyone else who didn't fit the bill. And then the part of that evil really comes to a boiling point with the brothels that Jake strolls by on Greenville Avenue. So if you think of this series as like a stretch of postcards, which one would you take with you? Like, what's the particularly haunting image that you got from this stretch?
I mean, it's that book depository for me.
Yeah.
Even though I know what it looks like already, but it's interesting. I never saw the show Dallas as a kid, but I'd always see the title card for it. And so that was pretty much my only, I guess, information about it. And then the Kennedy assassination too, obviously. And I've visited there for a wedding. And it's weird because I feel like I think of Dallas as a place where there's never any like moonlight or darkness. Like it's always bright in the day and full of concrete. And that's something to me for some reason. And look, once again, especially if you live in Dallas, I know that's not the case. I'm sure there's wonderful things about it, but my very limited perception of it, like the postcard image of it, right? And what I've read in books, it just seems like this towering, very industrialized metropolis full of concrete where it never gets dark out. That's what I think about it. And so I feel like the book depository sort of embodies all of that, because even I mean, also too, is a book depository the same as a library or not? It is, right? It's like a big library, or not really, or
I don't know. I always thought of it as like a warehouse, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can look it up in a second, but
either way, it's a place filled with my favorite things in the world, books, right? But it's so unseemly looking and just looming and haunting, and and once again, we're getting it through the mind or through the lens of the best horror novelist in the world, so it's going to seem especially scary, and it comes with all this foreboding context that the novel comes with. But that's what I think of. That kind of like sums up my very superficial knowledge of Dallas.
In King of the Hill, when Peggy's supposed to go to the Boggle tournament in Dallas, Hank puts his foot down because he's like, Dallas, that place is crawling with crackheads and debutantes.
Well,
good Hank Hill.
I mean, that is a really good Hank Hill. And that's basically what he kind of finds strolling around here. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned the book depository, Dan, because just the way that King, or at least the way that Jake likens it to the kitchen ironworks is really creepy. And that just that foreboding sense of, because it would be weird to go to a place like that. The concept of going to an iconic place that has history that hasn't happened yet, that would have that feeling to you. Like imagine going to like New York again in like 1999, and you're like standing at the top of the World Trade Center, and you know that this is all going to be gone in like 2 years.
Oh, dude, I get creeped out when I see it in movies. Like it's in any movie that takes place in New York before 2001, and honestly, most of the time it's like John Hughes comedies or something like that, right? And I just get chills every time. It just feels unnatural to me every time I see it.
Yeah.
So I just imagine it would double down, having that foreshadow or having the knowledge of what's to come, which is something that none of us are ever going to be able to do. So I think it's an interesting
like
thing.
There's this lurking evil that hasn't bitten yet, but if you get too close to it, it might bite you just a little bit before it takes its big bite. You know?
I think it's like Derry too. I was like, there's certain geographies that are like conduits for evil or shine or anything, and Jake is like, I don't really like this place, but it's a feeling he can't really understand. It's just something is telling him like, no, I can't stay here. And I think it's smart that he transitions to Jodie, which, how far out of Dallas is that? It's like, I know it's pretty far.
Not too far.
Well, it's a
the
fictional.
distances are vast in Texas though, so it might be like an hour drive or something.
That's true. Right? Yeah, I mean, Texas is
it's huge,
fucking juggernaut. For me though, I really. What about you, Fligger? Though, what's the one that stands and sticks with you?
Like in terms of what the
well, just this journey, like
the image, the postcard image.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it haunted me as much. Like I was saying, it's kind of like his skin starting to crawl a little bit. It's just like there's something communicating, some sort of, if not hand of God, but there is something that's kind of warning him. And I just think he is smart to like kind of get out of there, especially with what he's gone through in Florida with the building burning. And you're starting to notice that there are forces at work here that are trying to prevent him from accomplishing his mission. And I think he's finally starting to pay attention to those now that he's had a few close calls.
Yeah, the sense I got when those happen, you know, when he hears the voice calling to him, and it just reminds me of like something like Kubrick would do for 2001. You know, like when you hear like the choir playing in the background or something. It really, or like even what like Freakin' does when like Marin's looking at the Pazuzu statue. It's just like has that sort of like menacing stare. Jen, what's a segment here that during this trip to Jodie that get, you know, even whether it's in Dallas or whether it's outside of Dallas or New Orleans, what stuck with you?
Well, there are two, and I can't remember exactly where they are, and I keep going back and forth in my mind about which one I want to say, so I'm just going to say them both. But the scene outside the brothel is really upsetting. That one, it just the fact that you're in a place where that happens on the street and people just kind of keep going, you know, that just tells you what kind of town this is. But I think the one that really kind of sticks out more so because I know people like this is the scene with Oswald's mother, you know, where he's like chasing the brother down the street and yelling. And I can't remember where this happens. I think it's actually in New Orleans and not Dallas, right?
I think it isn't. No, it's in Dallas.
Is it in Dallas?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
But it's like, it's one because people on the street see this too. And there's even a guy who walks by and like sticks his fingers in its ears. And like, she reminds me so much of my mother-in-law. She's not as bad, but like, it's just like, we all know people like that, where they just will take anything about you and twist it and twist it and twist it until you're the bad guy and they are the victim. And it was pinging so many bells that I couldn't even remember what references I was like catching. There's something in King's Dominion that I know she is reminding me of.
Well, she's got also a lot of mean moms in King's Dominion.
Yes, yeah, a lot of it's that kind of thing, but it's just such a nagging thing. And it's like this seems like a harmless thing. It seems like the kind of thing that you're going to walk by and you're going to put your fingers in yours and you're going to laugh later about it. But this is the kind of family that built somebody like Lee Harvey Oswald, you know, and that it's like this tiny little ripple effect that ends up producing. And I'm not saying that this is the reason he shot Kennedy in King's novel, but just like these are the kind of things that like this is an example of the water getting hot by degrees, and we just don't. It hasn't boiled yet, but it's coming. you know?
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Do we know if Marguerite or Marina or anyone related to Oswald? Because I think their brother and his ex-wife are still alive. Have they read 11/22/63? I don't know this. Or...
They probably read it to their kids.
They probably do. They're like, hey, guess what, Uncle? If it were me, I would have had enough of the whole Kennedy thing.
I'm sure
I would
yeah.
not want to stick my neck out and say, hey, actually,
it's kind of crazy to think they're still alive, though.
I
that's
know.
Strange to think. But anyway,
well, it's like when you read that, like Ruby Bridges, who like integrated schools, is like a couple, like 20 years older than us. She's still alive. She's still kicking.
I mean, because his brother, let's see, what was his brother's name again? Robert,
I think.
Let's see, Robert
the
is
pull quote on the dust jacket from Robert. Buy this book.
Right.
Live the history.
Right.
He's like, yeah, that's pretty much exactly how it happened.
Yeah. One man's journey from a nagging mother to anti-hero.
Well, it's interesting because I talked about the other side of the coin in these types of incidents, with Andrew, with the Coleman family. Do we have that sort of same feeling for this family at all? I mean, it's because it's kind of a similar situation here on a much grander scale.
I have sympathy for this family a bit more. I mean, I don't want to get into any hot water from saying this. I'm not saying I mean, we don't see Lee obviously yet. And a lot has been said about his personality and how he treated his wife and everything like that. For some reason, because there's been so much written about him, and I think a presidential assassination is a bit different than a guy who murders his family. You know what I mean? Wait, do you see the Cullums or the Dunnings?
Oh, for the Cullums.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Because in that sense, it's like they were. I'm trying to get the argument of like if the incident happened in those woods and Andrew Cullum shot by accident, Kathleen Poland, his life is over in the sense that they're always going to demonize him. They're always going to demonize the family, and especially the family. And I think that and that was an incident that would have been an accident that would have been clear out of his hands, which is far different from Oswald. But his family, Oswald's family, is removed from his plan. So do we have those same sentiments of, well, they're kind of victims in this too?
I think that both things can be true. I'm thinking of like somebody like Sue Snell too, like based on what happened, like she has to go live somewhere where nobody knows her, essentially give up her whole life. And I don't know what happened to the Oswald family, but I imagine something similar, and they can be, and even Oswald, like he can be a victim of a abusive family or a toxic family and also do horrible things. And he is not the bigger victim, and he's not the one who's suffered the most. Like we can hold all of these things at the same time. And I think the lesson then becomes like when you see mothers treat their children like this, what do you do? Do you let it go? Or do you say this could create someone who could do something far worse down the road? And I'm not saying that you should step in when you see somebody yell at their kid, but just like an awareness of what happened. Like if we look at Dahmer also, when you see things like that, just knowing what it could lead to gives us a little bit more responsibility to kind of keep an eye on everybody.
Like
Yeah,
like that,
but I also think that's what made him a good target to be recruited as a possible CIA asset, is that he checks a lot of boxes, right? And behavioral issues, defecting to the Soviet Union. So the CIA would understand if in fact that's, who did it, that this is a guy that we could pin a lot of things on because he is kind of this broken man that we can rebuild into our, the vessel of death, or as it were.
Yeah. If you read, I know this is fiction, not nonfiction, but if you read Libra by Don DeLillo, that's very much how he's portrayed. It's strange because he is kind of cold and robotic, but he's also very moldable. Like he kind of just goes along with things. I think he's just susceptible to fairly extreme ideologies. I don't know, I was just looking up if I Googled, has Robert Oswald read 11/22/63? I couldn't find anything, but he does believe that his brother acted alone, much like King does.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Maybe he would be in agreement with it.
Yeah.
I do think it's important, even though we don't see Lee in this chapter. You asked before, Mike, if we feel more sympathy for Dunning after seeing that graveyard scene. And while I don't feel more sympathy, I do see he is a complex person, right?
Mhm.
And I do think this is important, even though we're just dipping a toe in the water into what we know about Oswald. I think it's important that almost immediately Jake is forced to see him as a human, probably even more so from meeting his family first before he meets him. You know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, cool. I know this guy came from these people. He wasn't just some demon that formed out of the prim or the ether, whatever you want to call
like,
it.
have you seen the movie Come and See? Anyone?
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think so.
It's really good, but the final shot it's like a bit of a jump of still images, and it ends on a photo of baby Hitler. And so you're like,
I read about this movie. Yeah,
the movie's awesome. It's one of the most
Come and
shocking
See?
movies I've ever seen. Come and
I've
See.
heard about this.
Because it's a quote from the Book of Revelations, but it's like Belarus basically being genocided.
Yeah,
but it does this
movie recently.
very rapid fire thing of the ending on the picture of baby Hitler. So there is like, there is a story there. There is humanity, but you also can't just, I don't know, I might have like more of a stony heart, but I do think like justice needs to be meted out. So
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
I think like we all kind of agree with that sentiment, but it's important to understand, but it doesn't make an excuse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good button.
Yeah.
And one that allows us to go to our final destination. And I'm not talking about Devon Sawa. I know that disappoints you, Jen.
I'll go there though.
We're going to Jodie, Texas. And King offers a nice little description via Jake. Later into this his stay, Jake says, if you've ever been homesick or felt exiled from all the things and people that once defined you, you'll know how important welcoming words and friendly smiles can be. Jodie was the anti-Dallas. You know what? You feel it instantly. And I think King does a fucking great job in showing you, all right, we're back. You've seen the reality. Now we're back.
It's almost the reverse move of the toilet, right? It's like we see, whereas we first saw the idyllic gas station, then we're in this horrible, backwater behind it. Now it's like, okay, we saw the underbelly first in Dallas, and now we see the facade. It doesn't mean the facade is not real to an extent, but because as we will see, Jake develops very real feelings here for both the place and the people there. But there's also darkness that comes in Jodie eventually too.
There is.
And I think that's important to know. But no, he does make you feel it right away. I mean, you're enraptured by the place.
Just as I was enraptured by Jodie Sweeton growing up from Full House.
Yes.
No, I was a
Stephanie.
What about
Cameron girl?
Oh, here we go.
I was gonna, should I bring up
I love gassing Capri up for Full House.
You knew what you were doing when you did that. Okay,
Fuller Holes.
We're not talking about Fuller Holes.
Oops, all rants.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna turn this into an oops all rants.
Yeah, it's a funny joke and a funny bit, and I think it's. You know what? Let's actually talk about Fuller Holes for a second.
Hey, we need to. What we should do is
Let him get it out of the system.
If you don't know what we're talking about, you should sign up for our Patreon and listen to which episode was that, Jen? It was
the Ranking Kings Families. episode.
Listen to Ranking King's Family, and you two, King's Families, and you can join in on the Fuller Holes.
Joe versus Owen.
Yeah.
No,
we don't do
not
that. This is the perfect King setting, right?
Yeah, it's chef's kiss. Like you said it, you feel it right away, and it's such a relief after coming out of Dallas. It's like this friendly face, and it almost feels like because we meet him in a diner, so it's like the anti-Al too. It's like I'm going to get you involved in something really good that's going to make you feel valued and useful and good, but not in a way that is hurting you so much.
Is it 61 or 62? Now what year?
It's in 61, I believe.
So you still have that carryover. Usually most decades, like we think it's a clear cut, but
it's not.
The first few years of a decade it brings over something. So there's still this lingering 1950s Americana that I feel like he's really, he kind of felt like a bit of a tourist when he was in Maine, but now he's kind of putting down roots. He's employed and he's going to get to live his 1950s dream.
This is
also
go for it.
Too. King has done Southwest towns before with Desperation, and I'm sure some other ones I'm forgetting. But have we seen an idyllic, non-haunted Southwest town from him? Maybe we have. I could be wrong.
Well, there's the end of the whole mess, which is what La Playa.
Right.
But then that's because it turns to shit.
I was gonna say the Stand. We see some of these locations, but it's already been run over.
Yeah, have we ever had an idyllic town? Because Needful Thing, obviously, Castle Rock isn't. And. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
They have a hell of a band. That seems
Yeah,
pretty good.
well,
Yeah,
in rainy
heaven,
season,
rock and
rainy
roll.
season, there are a couple of short stories that are the idyllic town gone bad, but yeah, I can't think of one that stays good.
Well, this is
you know?
where I start.
Sidewinder.
I guess so, but
Is anything
no, not.
happening?
Oh, I
I think
mean,
so.
you got Annie Wilkes outside. Then you have
That's true.
the
Yeah, she's
overlook.
lurking.
Yeah, I mean, and even you could argue that the Boulder Free Zone is kind of a shit show too, given everything that
Oh
fucking
yeah,
happens
yeah.
there.
Once
so,
that other dude takes over after the ad hoc committee, there it's all downhill.
so this is where it really comes into fruition of just a newer king that we talked about in episode 1, not
Yeah.
the Phantom Menace, but the episode 1, the watershed moment. We talked a little bit about not a little bit. We talked a lot about the marketing and about how they really felt they needed to rebrand them. I sense when you get to Jodie, I don't even actually. I think it's a perfect king construct town, but I actually see more parallels to like watching like Friday Night Lights or something here.
Yes.
And the way he is able to kind of capture that spirit. It almost feels a lot like another show that I just rewatched or watched was the Gilmore Girls, where you want to be here. You want to
Mhm.
stay in here. You want this town. You just want to see all the nuances of this town, and you want to just. It's like a warm blanket. And I think now that I'm rereading this, it's such a pointed decision on him to do that
Mhm.
because of where this is going to go and what are the choices that Jake are going to have to make. But I can hear arguments of people saying, this is a little too fucking Rockwellian. Or not Rockwellian, normal Rockwellian, this is a little too Rockwellian for me. What about you, Fligger? What do you make a joke? You agreed with me on the Friday Night Lights thing.
Yeah, no, I was about to say I hear like the guitar noodling,
Mhm.
coming up in the background, the explosions in the sky. But
Yeah.
I think that's a great comparison because Mike and I are huge Friday Night Light fans, and I went into it thinking I wasn't gonna like the show, and I didn't realize it's so much about the town and the sense of community. And it's like, what are you gonna do on a Friday night? Well, I'm gonna do what everyone does and go to the football game. It really captures that. So much of what we think about when you think of like an idealized 1950s, but it's there's like the tough kids, there's the good kids, the bad kids, but it's a lot of it's just like the town coming together. And we got some sense of that in Maine, but like I said, he was kind of transient, Jake, but now George is establishing himself here, and he can't help but be part of the town. He's no longer on the outside looking in, he's in it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and what I also dig is that
Texas forever too.
Texas forever.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like Friday Night Lights to me because
Mhm.
these aren't just black and white characters. They're very gray at times. Like they're not. They all have flaws. We'll talk about one character in particular that might be the first manic pixie librarian, but
Deal.
yeah. But I do love the fact that this does feel like a new side of King here, because I don't actually get the sense that, or maybe I'm just actually just too and I'm just too sold on the magic and whimsy of it all, but it doesn't feel like the menacing towns that we go to. I don't really sense a blue velvet thing happening here. I've sensed that if there's any danger or darkness that's lurking here, it's a little more surface level, and we're seeing bits and pieces of it as it goes on. But this is a very nuanced town in a very idyllic setting, and that's a kind of thing. That's a hard thing to pull off, and I think he does it here. Jen.
Well, and yeah, this is absolutely my favorite section of the novel. And when I think about it, this book, this is what comes up. It's Jodie and Sadie. And I love it because it's like a refuge of everything that is happening in the story and how dark it's going to get. And especially knowing what happens at the end and how kind of bittersweet it is. It's like we get these moments of beauty and we get to linger there too. And I love that King chooses to spend time here. And, we were talking about like the fabric of the universe and the balance. And if towns like Derry exist where something is inherently bad, then towns like Jodie must exist too, where things are inherently good. And, there are bad people. Like we have the coach that's kind of shaming Mike for wanting to be in the play. So like, it's not a perfect town. It's not like a utopia. It's not ideal. But it's good. And it just feels so good to read. And I love that we see so much of it before Sadie gets there, because we're able to really fall in love with Jodie first before Sadie.
You mentioned the coach. And that's pretty much the first character I was thinking of in terms of that nuance, is because that's what I love about Friday Night Lights, is that you get characters in that show and in the book, the original book that's based on reality, that, you know, on the at first time you meet him, you're like, oh man, this guy's a surface level jerk. And then by, you know, 5 episodes later, he's one of your favorite characters. And
You think about Buddy?
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking
exactly.
about?
Yeah.
Like when you first meet him, he's like fucking awful. And
Yeah,
even,
you think he's gonna be the big villain.
and even
He
some
feels
other
very
characters.
lovable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so good, because that's life. Like
Yes,
that is
exactly.
what that feels more real to me. And I think when you can do the balance of giving enough realism but also making you escape your own current reality, it's not just a warm blanket, it's like a blanket that also feels familiar. And I think that's really important. And I think if he didn't execute it, this could absolutely feel like 50s porn or 60s porn. And it's not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so interesting because there's this feeling of coming home when you get there. You know, there's this feeling of Jake finally finding where he belongs. And we talked about in the introductory episode, like, he is a man that was born in the wrong time. And I think this really sets up, one, the choice between, like, should I stay here or should I continue? What is my actual mission? Is my mission to be happy, or is my mission to save the world? And is it possible for me to do both? And also, like, do I actually belong here, or do I just want to belong here? And is this a piece of life that I could create for myself after seeing that this kind of happiness is possible? I just have to look for it, you know?
Yeah. There's an innocence, and, like, I mean, you got to keep in mind, like, there's been a history of war throughout human history. But even now, after World War II, we're not, you know, Korean conflict's not as major. There's this sense of relief in America, right? There's a little more of an innocence and a return to this virtue that is going to get shattered when Kennedy's brain gets, you know, or his skull gets shattered. But it's almost like 9/11. It's like this idyllic 90s that we can't go back to, because 9/11 changed that. And that's what's going to happen to this town, right? People are going to start locking their doors at night, and they're not going to be so trusting. But right now, it seems like, you know, the worst thing that's going to happen is the kids are going to steal some beers from dad, and cops could be like, I told you boys, take it outside, you know, and
Tip too many cows.
yeah. And there's not really an evil. I mean, but the evil is going to follow Jake into this town, and, like, he doesn't even realize it, but him coming, there's almost a magnetic effect, and things are not Maine so nice. And I think that's what kind of eventually jolts him back to be like, you are on a mission here. Like, don't get lost in this.
Yeah.
When I think too, though, it is. I'm thinking about what you said earlier, Mike, about how the evil is more surface level here, because we'll see some of that as the novel goes on, but it's different than Derry, where there's like a cosmic kind of horror in place. And like I was saying before, Dunning and Bev's dad, like, these are already bad people who this supernatural force pushed to even more unimaginable extremes. Whereas I feel like in Jodie, it's like, okay, yeah, you might have a guy who's a drunk and an asshole. You might have a guy who beats his wife, and you know, both bad things, obviously, but it's like what you see is what you get. I don't know if there's that kind of uneasy mystery about all the evil, if that makes sense.
Like, welcome to Jodie. We'll leave the light on for y'all.
Well, we get that sentiment by seeing the characters, the core. Basically a core 4 here of characters that we get to kind of show us what Jodie's got. And, you know, the first two, Deke Simmons and Mimi Corcoran, they really do feel like the shepherds for us into getting us into this town. And I love these characters. I'm a little biased because Deke is played in the series that was on Hulu. He's played by Nick Searcy, who is Art Mullen, which is like the paternal stand-in for Raylan Givens in Justified. So I just, on the reread now, I can't think of anyone else but him. And I love that character in Justified, and I love, like, how he's basically the same type of character here as Deke. So I do have a lot of context now that basically colors that character and forms for me. But I kind of just, I'd still love him though. Like, I mean, am I alone here? Is Deke an immediate thumbs up for you all when you first meet him?
Yeah, I think he cares for his people.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, kind of. Of the 4, he's probably the one I want to know the more about. And we will. More about, what am I saying? Want to know more about. He feels the most little bit stock character-y to me, but you know, but I do dig him off the bat.
He's not like stern disciplinarian necessarily. He has to run a ship, right? He's the principal. but he seems like he's forgiving and willing to offer second chances, and he's able to recognize the talent that Jake has pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And even with his quizzing him about what is it Catcher in the Rye, right? And it's you can tell he's curious to hear the answer, and he likes, I think, that Jake is a thoughtful guy, or George I should call him, but that he can weigh in on a controversial topic without just taking too strong of a stance. And I think George understands that he's being tested by this guy.
Jen.
And I think what I like about him, because my heart immediately goes to Mimi, and I just love her so much.
You could talk about her too, because well, this is a pair, so
okay. Well, but I think what I like the most about Deke, because we don't really know him that well yet, and a lot of what is going to make me love him happens later. But I love that he defers to her, but that he's not an idiot. Like they say, Mimi essentially runs him, and it would have been really easy for King to just make him kind of a hapless idiot who just kind of is a figurehead at the school, and Mimi does everything. It's like the Dick Cheney of the school, But he's not. He values her opinion, and he listens to her because he loves and respects her, not because he doesn't have opinions of his own, and that's, I think, the thing that I really like about him right off the bat. But he also is like, I am the one that hires. Mimi tells me who to hire, but I still have to deal with this too,
He's the head, but she's the neck, and the neck can make the head look direction it wants to go.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of butchered that, but that's from My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Oh, is it? Is it the first one or is the third one that just came out?
I haven't seen the third one yet, but
I haven't seen
any of them ever.
I hear it's a delight though.
I did like the first movie; it's very cute.
The
first movie's a blast.
Fine, it's fun.
Yeah,
I like that Aiden's in it from Sex and the City.
Oh, I do too. That's
all I got.
Guy didn't really do much though.
Did he? I don't know.
Should we go to his career right now? I do like the thing I like about Deke is that he's pragmatic. I like pragmatic characters. I had this thing when I was growing up, and I think Sammy did too, where it was just like if they had the choice to hang out with and listen to adults versus hanging out with some idiot kids, I would always just choose to just kind of sidle up at the table and listen to the adults. And it's only like, there'd certainly be some adults where I'm like, wow, you're as childish as me. But I would love to just kind of listen to characters like Deke and Mimi and just kind of, have some just like kind of soak some stuff in. And if they were cool, if I was, I always thought they were cool enough because they could basically talk about anything and have some sort of, conversational style to it, no matter how, no matter how controversial the topic could be. And I get the sense with that's exactly what Deke and Mimi is like. Now, the only reason I brought up Manic Pixie Librarian earlier is because I was trying. Look, I love all these characters, but I have to play the devil's advocate here. I mean, she was an instant sell for me. I love, the way that Jake reacts to her death is very similar to how I do when rereading it. But did we need a little more time with her?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need it, but I want more time with her,
It just feels like the short stretch that we get with her. She's kind of like, I say Manic Pixie Librarian because it's like she's perfect.
Yeah,
like,
she's too good to be true.
Yeah. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do wish that we had some sort of like, she just comes and goes so fast, which, there's nothing wrong with the punctualness of this all, but I do think that if we saw something like, maybe even like a moment where like at the wedding, she gets a little too tipsy or something like that. And you could see some sort of flaw in her design a little bit. And maybe not too much of a human, like just a human flaw, just something that gives it a little bit more of that. And you just don't really get it much in this, unfortunately. So
we just don't see that much of her.
I know, that's the thing. Yeah.
And I think King does a really great job of building her like legacy and impact in the town without really showing her. Like when she dies, we feel it, and we feel the town feel it, even though we haven't really actually had much time with her on the page.
Yeah.
She just kind of really jumps out, and I just love her. I would be bereft.
Yeah.
It's just so sweet. But yeah, I would like a little, I don't know if I necessarily need her to have a flaw, but I want to see more of these scenes with them,
I take it back, not a flaw, but just some sort of human element that doesn't have some demeanor. Like she kind of gives it with the one-on-one with Jake. Like I love the dialogue there. It's just it's so well done. But I kind of wish that we had just something like that gives us a little bit more humanity and insight into.
I would argue she has it though. She's kind of the one that pieces together that Jake's story doesn't quite add up.
Yeah, I love that.
But she's willing to look the other way, and you could argue that's a redeeming
puts
quality,
the
or maybe a
students
little
in
bit flawed,
danger.
right? Because obviously knowing Jake puts people in danger and gets some people seriously hurt. So the fact that she's willing to kind of look the other way as necessary, I mean, speaks to her own pragmatism, but
She's
also
kind
you can see that she's a little impatient and she doesn't want to be bullshitted.
Yeah. I think the moment I would have needled it in is when they, he talks about how Sadie just comes and goes and plays with the kids and all. That's when I would have had Mimi come back and have one more interaction with Jake to give us a little, just a little bit more of that peeling back the not the facade per se, but the veneer of some of that she has. But
would you want her to fall and then Jake grab her boobs as he's trying to pull her up?
Well, yeah, I mean, 2 for 2 for Jake that day. It would be great.
4 for 4, eh?
Throwing their tits, throwing their tits in my hands.
Yeah.
I'm also like, I'm a manic dream girl apologist. I think like I always am into them and like want to be one, but so maybe that's why she doesn't bother me. This like larger than life over the top doesn't bother me,
Yeah.
I want to be Mimi when I grow up.
Oh, I know. I mean, it's just again, just playing devil's advocate, because I know that could be a criticism that's lodged on the character. Caffrey.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it wrong to say that her age makes her not a manic pixie librarian? If that makes sense, is that like ageist to me to say that?
What's an old pixie? Can you be an old pixie? A
Very
crone with wings.
A manic crone dream girl. That's what I actually want to be.
I don't. I know we were talking about Mr. Holland's Opus before, but she kind of reminds me of the good principal in Mr. Holland's Opus who leaves, who retires a little bit, and. It doesn't really bother me. I don't know. I guess she, to me, feels like just the right amount of idealism. And I don't know, I'm a sucker for weddings that happen really late in life, so these people can get happiness. So I don't know. For me, it kind of leans in. I just am drawn to the wholesomeness of it. And I feel like the book earns it at this point.
Well, she's a great bridge into.
We don't
at
all go back to her.
No.
I guess we wouldn't, right? But
yeah.
I don't know. She reminds me of though is the principal from Kindergarten Cop.
Yes.
Yeah. She's like, I don't know where you came from, Jake Epping, but you're a hell of a good kindergarten teacher.
Yeah. I mean, again, I was just playing devil's advocate, but I do wish
the things we need to talk
yeah,
about.
I do want a little bit more on reread. I was like, I forgot we had not that much.
She's already dead.
She's a gasp.
I feel like I'm remembering a thing that happens later in the novel as reintroducing us to her, but obviously I think I'm wrong about this.
Check out the Hulu miniseries if you want more with her character, because I think the casting is really good. They cast her as a black woman on the miniseries, and I think her character actually gets more fleshed out on the series.
I was gonna say, does she have a bigger part? I still haven't seen the miniseries.
It's worth watching. We'll talk about that another time. But
in
I
January,
am in my head
another story.
trying to keep the separate church and state here.
The green card, Dan.
Well, Mimi threw a wedding. She had this great wedding with a lot of food there. I imagine alongside the burgers and the hot dogs, there's a little coleslaw. And if this kind of reminds me of our next
I thought you were going
character.
to go into pound cake for a second.
No. We still got 2 more to go. Real quick,
it was good. Wait, I haven't even talked about Sadie yet. But
coleslaw. Great device for King to use. And it kind of allowed Jake to cook, as the kids say, as an instructor, which in turn shows us, how he's a very insightful and empathetic character. I think that's that scene with Jake, and it's Marty Coleslaw, or is it Michael Coleslaw?
Marty Coleslaw's in Cycle the Werewolf, I think. Right?
That's what I thought. Yeah.
We'll save that for King's Dominion, but it's Michael Coleslaw. Yeah.
Okay, so the scene where it's just the two of them talking, and Jake's eventually, basically giving the pep talk of like, here, you got to do this. You're a born actor, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same thing as being on the football team. That is such a crucial scene. And specifically for Jake, because I think at that point, he's really, if the cabin scenes before in Maine were his transitional, moments. This is when I think he really becomes a citizen of this time. And he realized that this isn't just a sit and play. Like, no, he's in this and he believes in this.
And I think there's a parallel with Harry Dunning, that it gives Jake that passion for teaching. He sees this student that's really making the effort, and that if they just have proper direction and a little encouragement, they can achieve some big things. So I think he's falling back in love with the profession when he sees this kid and understands the situation. And we all know what it is to have like the coach versus the drama teacher, but I don't think that was as pronounced or as understood back then. Whereas a guy from present day goes back and he's like, I understand what's going on here. You're a big tough guy, so you can't be in the theater club. But he's just like, that's bullshit. And I think he even curses, and Casa is like, oh my God, the teacher said a curse word in it. But it impresses upon this young man, like, no, you should do this, and because you're good at it.
Yeah. That modern take is really cool too. I like that because it's, he's almost like a little left of the dial. He's like Williams in Dead Poet Society, John Keating. He's just like, everyone's
standing
like,
on his desk.
This guy knows what's up. Or Mr.
Like
Holland's
Society
Opus
ruined a generation of educators.
Yeah. Sorry, Caffrey, what were you saying?
No, I was just gonna say this is my favorite section of the book so far. I know we talked about part 3 being, or even just Jodie being one of our favorite sections of the book, but within that, even, and then for the whole novel, this is one of my favorites. Granted, I'm biased, because I'm a theater kid.
I was gonna say, yeah,
but do theater, but I love this. I mean,
but you did sports also, because I remember you would get shit from a coach for missing practice sometimes.
I did, yeah. Play. I had to do our coaches. This is very funny. It's funny. I had to do his score sheets as kind of penance, I think, for being allowed to go to theater practice. But I got the idea that he. No offense to Coach Colding, but
I love how you're naming him.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. I got no beef with him. But it was funny because I got the idea that he actually wasn't great at math, and this is like very basic addition. Because I'm not that good at math either, and it was very basic addition. I remember one time we were all hanging up in the bleachers during a meet, and we were just talking to girls, doing whatever. And then Coach Colding was down there. He's like, hey, Caffrey, get down here and do my book. And so I had to like go all the way down the bleachers in front of everyone, get his scorebook. And everyone laughed at me, and I like flicked them off.
Yeah,
but
we were like catcalling him. And then he aims middle fingers up at us, but it's a stadium full of people that just see Caffrey flipping everyone off.
Fucking Andy Dufresne over here doing the
stuff. The price I paid for doing theater and sports. But it's funny because I was wondering while reading this, I know King taught high school English, right, for a while. I don't know if he ever directed a school play. Maybe he did, but I felt like he nailed exactly that experience of, I love how he didn't make the play too good. Like it was high school good, right? Which is different from, professional good. And also the experience of identifying a student who has an insane amount of talent and really fostering that, and how challenging that can be to get them over the conventional obstacles, whether it be from parents or coaches or whoever else. Like he just nails it. I have a couple passages that I've saved for word processor later. I felt like Kosal never came off as too big of a galoot, but too sensitive of a theater kid either. Like he just felt like a real person who was just good and worked hard. I know
a lot of
Mr.
people
Holland's
like
Opus. You see the football players.
But he's not he's not Blaze. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah.
He could become Blaze.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the inclusion of mice and men is relevant here. You know?
Yeah. Oh, and the way he talks about him just naturally landing into the part and elevating everyone around him on the stage too. That's such a real thing. Not even just high school theater. That's a real thing in regular adult contemporary theater too. That once I'll save that passage.
I mean,
later,
it's a trope for a reason.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, it's true. Like I think a great actor can make a mediocre actor good.
Yeah.
A good actor maybe can't make a bad actor good or something like that, right? But I mean, it is there's a reason. I feel like he just tapped into what it feels like for theater to become an ecosystem and for a play to become a community in and of itself. And that weirdly, it's funny. I think people rag on community theater and high school theater a lot, but you actually feel that rallying around a show much more in those environments than you do in regional theater or Broadway or off Broadway.
Oh, I bet.
Like that.
Yeah.
Not that you can't have good times in those places, but I think once it becomes so monetized and there's so much else tied into it, you lose a little bit of that purity in a way. I mean,
it's dog eat dog at that point because everyone's just looking out for themselves.
As much as I love all the stuff I've done as an adult, in a very weird way, those doing the Fantastics in high school, doing 12 Angry Men, or 12, we call it 12 Angry Jurors because it was a mixed gender cast, doing Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I mean, I'm not saying, I think some of those plays I did were very good for high school. I'm not saying they were the most amazing things in the world. It was educational theater. It was all about the students learning. But when I think about the community response and the community I felt within those shows and the life events that were tied into those, I mean, those will be like the most informative theatrical experiences probably until I die. And I feel like King really nails what that feels like through the of Mice and Men production.
So you did good, kid, because I was in the audience for all those shows. And
oh, thanks. No, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Did you ever do Of Mice and Men?
No, I never did Of Mice and Men. I'm trying to think. I did. I'm trying to think the closest. Yeah, it was in 12 Angry Jurors. Did a monologue from the Elephant Man.
You're not Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where I played Mr. Beaver. So I didn't. There was a mouse in the show. So that's the closest to Of Mice and Men. But yeah, we never did that at River Ridge.
What about you, Jen? I know you've been involved in theater before, right?
I have, yeah. I've done a lot more directing than I've done actually. In high school, I did Guys and Dolls and You Can't Take It With You, but I was in music or show choir. That was my thing. But like I directed a ton of elementary musicals, which is a whole nother thing. And the thing that I learned is I like started with this like script and these songs, and I like drilled everything into them. And they were fine. They were like going through the motions, and it was cute and it was whatever. And then once I started letting them create a lot more of their characters and like letting them rewrite lyrics to kind of like we used to do the Nutcracker every year, and I would let it be whatever theme they decided. So one year it was like pilots, and one year it was summer camp Nutcracker, and that's when they came alive and they really started to enjoy it, And so like I just have these memories of like the last musical I did before I left teaching, of us singing like Rainbow Connection, and it when you all buy into the same thing and you're all there for every moment of rehearsal and you're all kind of on the same team, and there's just such beauty in it. It's like you're flying, and there's nothing else like it. And I agree with you. I feel like once you start getting into more professional theater, it's like professional sports, that you lose the magic of like Little League or like high school football. And even though it is technically better or technically like more proficient or more, the skill set is higher, it's like there's a magic I feel like that's lost,
Well, seeing, and King gets to this novel, and to what Jen just said too, it's like I think more so in high school theater than in or high school performing arts than professional performing arts. The kid can identify themselves getting better. Like no matter if they're a good actor or not, or whether they're going to do it for a living one day or not, seeing a kid grow and seeing them recognize that growth in themselves really is a special thing, whether you're in that circle or seeing it later on as a teacher. I mean, and King really does nail that without it feeling saccharine or anything like that.
Well, and seeing them excited about it too, they see a new part of themselves that they really want to embrace too,
I mean, it's it's cutting the wheat from the chaff. And when you think about it in high school, it's like, who's going to actually, what is this obligation for? For many, it's mostly an obligation, especially in high school at times. And then for those, it's for, people that either find themselves or find their own talent, or it becomes the thing to take them to that next level. So I think in that sense, it does become so much of a personal thing. Of course, I realized early on it wasn't for me, because I remember I tried out for A Christmas Carol, and they gave me, I think, Businessman 3, and I wasn't very into the teamwork, because I said, well, I've got a job after work, and I would have to cut into that, and since I have absolutely no lines and I'm just standing here, do I really need to be do I need to be at this rehearsal every day for 4 hours to just stand here? He's like, yeah, it's a big part of the community. And I was just like, well,
Mike,
like, I have to be a real
I know.
businessman.
I get it.
Look,
I get
what they say. There are no small parts. There are only small actors.
Yeah,
actually,
sure.
I hate
that line.
It's kind of a bullshit saying.
Oh no, I did have one line. It was some sort of business banter or some shit that was in there, and it was just like, it's like, all right,
TPS reports.
Yeah, I did actually in elementary school. They did give me Lenny the lifeguard role for a Magic School Bus play, and I remember this kid.
School bus play.
This blonde kid who basically looked like just the perfect. He looked like a Barbie doll or like a Ken doll. And he was just like, I was perfect for this role. Like, why didn't I get it? And I remember like I knew why I got it because I was just like, oh well, let's give him a chance and all. But of course, I had to be like, well, some people are made for roles and some people aren't, or something like that. And it was just it was such a dumb role anyway.
Got him.
Yeah, it really got him. But yeah, if you can't tell, I was a prick, and maybe I still am. I don't know.
Can I just chime in with my theater experience?
Yeah, I was going to say
because
you've had it.
I wrote a hit play in second grade that legitimately won an award, and Amelia Bedelia Learns How to Drive.
You actually wrote your own Amelia Bedelia play?
I love Amelia Bedelia.
And it got put on, and so
did she go in wacky directions?
Oh, I mean, she kept her eye on the road.
Got sued for copyright.
Oh, did she? Like her actual eye?
But that's why I like Rushmore, because they're like, do you remember how you got in here? It's like, yeah, I wrote a one act about Watergate when I was 8 years old. But I've actually been in plays that Caffrey's written as an adult. And then me and him have actually written some plays, or we wrote Folk Fire, which got put on a couple times.
Yeah, back in
2008 maybe.
Eight. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well,
that's a good play, if I do say so myself.
Well, it looks like we're all a bunch of theater kids then.
It's fun to dally in the theater.
Yeah. I'm the bad boy that comes in and is like, fuck this. All right.
You did that monologue from
be here for this rehearsal.
You did the Patrick Bateman monologue from American Psycho, right?
Well, I was in forensics class for 2 years, which isn't about crime, but it was about acting and all. And I and that's where I've been doing that for 2 years. That's why I think when I tried out for the play and I got this like nameless like one line role, I was like, all right, fuck this shit. And like I was too obsessed with
part.
I was also in a band at the time, so I was just like, I don't really want to do this. What am I doing? And then I had to be surrounded by people that like are so dramatic to the point that I was giving me a headache. But
I mean, look, I say this as one theater people, and Fleer can attest. He's been around some of them too. But theater people can be very annoying. And self-serving.
Wow. So add to the list of things Caffrey hates. Texas as a whole.
They're also the most vocal.
People.
They're also the most vocal about how socially conscious they are. Activists they are. Like I know some of the actors who call themselves as activists. I'm like, you're a fucking actor. You're not an activist. I'm sorry. But like, and it's always like, look, we all got into this for one reason, because we like telling stories and we like attention. And I'm not saying you can't do good beyond that and adopt social issues and all that, but I don't know.
Do you know who I like hearing stories from? Is Mr. Stephen King. So we should get back to Cosmo. Just Losers Club talking theater. But
all right, we got one more character.
Was he a theater kid?
I think I have wondered if he actually directed some school plays. I couldn't really find anything on it, but it seems like it could have happened. Like maybe he worked with
This does feel like
Joe's.
an autobiographical section,
right? Like maybe he
or
worked,
at least he had to be an assistant director or something.
Yeah, like maybe he helped something with Joe or Owen.
I feel like Stephen King is too rock and roll in a way. Yeah. Like if that makes any sense.
Maybe he directed Jesus Christ Superstar. Or,
maybe.
Yeah. Maybe it's like, hey, Mr. King, would you like to help direct this play? He's like, you know what? I got two hands and they're only for 6 strings. And he like, and he like rocks out of the room or whatever. He's like, oh, I didn't notice he had a guitar.
Or he's like, fuck, I have to stand here as a writer for 3 hours.
Yeah, it's like no deal. Actually, I've got some more important things to say, to say on the page.
Starts writing Carrie.
Yeah, I don't
think
so.
Hey, you direct Carrie the musical.
Oh yeah.
Which I guess
you should have directed Carrie the musical. Yeah. Anyway, we got one more name, and look, we are going to discuss this character for many more episodes to come. So, and we've got a lot to learn about her. So we should really keep our thoughts specifically to the section. And it's only really like 15, 20 pages.
I was gonna say, there's not much to discuss with her yet. And that's fine. Like we don't need to, I think,
Yeah. So I think we should save her for a fuller discussion, but we should at least hint on it a little bit. Right?
So it's Sadie Dunhill or Sadie Clayton, as in Clara Clayton, like in Back to the Future 3, a movie I already referenced.
Got to go back in time.
We got to go back in time and find who I think I was so obsessed with this character when I first read this book. Like, I think I even wrote a piece on it when Etta James died around the same time. And I'll try to dig it up, but it was just like I was so enamored.
I thought you were going to say, I think I even wrote a poem to her.
Caffrey, I had the same
Your
thought.
hair is winter fire.
Yeah, I did. It was like, the January Embers.
You mailed it to Stephen King for an autograph.
Yeah, I was like, can you give this to Sadie, Stephen? But I love this character. I'll be definitely digressing more on her in the next episode. But where we're at right now, Caffrey, What strikes you about this character?
It's interesting because he really does focus so much on her physical appearance right off the bat, but he does it so well. Like, it doesn't at all come across to me as superficial or corny or misogynist or anything like that. He establishes this deep connection solely through physical attraction. And let's be real, when we first see someone, right? Like, I'm not saying love at first sight can't exist, but I do think physical attraction is a big part of it. And he almost treats that so sacredly here that it really works for me. And even though like the falling and him catching her and accidentally, brushing her breasts or whatever, even though it's all a little pat and plotted out, once again, I think he earns that with everything else that's come before. And once again, we're going to get so much more growth with her after this. But I feel like he really does nail that 50s style Notebook falling in love at first sight kind of thing. So I was just really struck by how he made that work. I'm not sure quite how he did it without coming off as corny, but he totally nails it for me.
But I think he also, and I think it has to be mentioned that she's very tall.
The height thing. Yeah.
And I know Mike and I have dated very tall women in the past, and there's like a difference, right? And if he's 6'4", Stephen King is 6'4", having a partner that is also kind of tall. I actually looked up in 1960, the average female height was 5'3".
Wow.
So if she's coming in at 5'9", possibly wearing heels even, she's just going to stand out, in the 1960s landscape. And I think also the fact that he said she's not clumsy, but she's accident prone. So it's also a bigger person that is collapsing into Jake, right? It's a spectacle in a way.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And that is such a distinct thing to outline. Yeah, like clumsy versus accident prone versus clumsy. I mean, I know I've told you this, Robin, before, and I know you mentioned Blue Velvet before. I always picture her as like Laura Dern from Blue Velvet. I'm not sure how tall Laura Dern is, but that's how
like the first read, I definitely pictured her.
I picture her like Amber Heard from The Rum Diary.
Oh.
Not to get into all that.
All right.
I just
can we actually talk about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case?
We haven't gone long enough, so let's go to 50 minutes.
Like a striking blonde beauty.
Yeah.
Like almost like Hitchcock-esque,
Yeah. Jen, you've been waiting forever to talk about Sadie.
Oh, I fucking love her.
Yeah,
she's great. But I think here, like, she, aside from like her appearance and just that she seems pleasant and accident prone, I do think it's interesting that like her meeting Jake is another accident, not to spoil anything, but that is part of her life. Like that's maybe why she was drawn to him. But I think what she says here, like I just come back to this line where Jake is talking about the weight of her, like the weight of having her in his arms. It's such a nice line. And I think actually here she tells us more about Jake than she does her. It's that Jake, like I also love the, like, I've lost the romance, or like what I've fallen out of the habit of love or romance. And I love that I think she is kind of telling him like, maybe it's not that I don't want to be with someone. Maybe it's that I don't want to be with someone that hurt me. And this is, so he's kind of awakening himself to the possibility of like loving somebody again, which I think is so sweet.
I just picture him giving himself like a pep talk in the mirror, like, get it together, Jake, and like splashing water in his face.
Fun guy. Yeah.
Like, you don't deserve this.
Part of the reason why this works so well is what I mentioned earlier, is that there's so much foreshadowing here. It's this rare, it's almost meta in its way where, you're seeing these two people. Usually when that happens in the movie, you're like, oh, here we go. It's only a matter of time before they get together. But he makes it pretty explicit early on. It's like, no, this is going to be a big thing, but it didn't happen at that moment, which I'd like to debate a little bit about in a second. But I think that's really smart because it allows you to kind of set an expectation and know where it's going in a way that doesn't kind of, like, the meet cute is always portrayed in movies and in books a lot of the times. It's like, oh, look at these, what's going to happen here, when we know what's going to happen here. And King is self-aware about that and basically having Jake admit that. It's kind of like, so I think that is what also helps it. But then even down to the fact that she acknowledges her own clumsiness and stuff, it's just like, that's...
No, she's accident prone. It's different.
Or accident prone. That's what I meant.
They make a distinction in the text. That's why I not to be like pedantic, but...
No, I know. But that's what I mean. It's like the fact that they're self-aware about that even as opposed to letting that be like, oh, look at this cute quality to her, which is what arguably a lot of the movies at that time were doing. I mean, it's like, oh, look, I'm trying to think of like Marilyn Monroe.
Bumping into tables and like knocking beers over. Like, hey,
yeah,
here comes Sadie, look out.
Yeah, I mean, so I think King is just very smart in table setting here. So...
Yeah, and it reminds me of The Crown. That one thing they'll do is they'll like throw Princess Diana into a couple of episodes before, like to say that, hey, this happened. It wasn't time yet, but this existed in this world. And I really bought that they weren't going to hook up at first when Jake was like, nope, nothing can ever happen. I was like, okay, well, I guess we're not going to fall in love. And then
wait, did you? Okay,
I really did. Yeah.
So on reread, I did want to debate that because I just had a feeling they were, because just the way that he's just the way he presents the situation. But do you buy that he didn't fall in love with her the minute that they first met? Because I find
I think he is. In love
he's
with her.
absolutely in love with her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah. Or at least in lust until he likes her.
Yeah.
But I also think it speaks to he's a man on a mission, right? And I don't think he was coming expecting any of this. So I think it's like an overwhelming sense that he's still processing. Like, I don't think he knows exactly what he feels, but he likes the feeling and he wants to chase it. And I do think it's great. I mean, if she falls, he catches her. And I think that speaks a lot about where the relationship is going to go moving ahead.
Yeah. Oh, man. And just thinking about some of it, it almost makes me cry now.
Oh, I know.
So beautiful.
Yeah. I had an existential crisis.
They develop it in a really good way. Or I should say King develops it. And it has, at least in my mind, callbacks to Roland and Susan Delgado.
Yeah,
I really love watching that romance blossom. Like, it's like one of my favorite sections of like
Wizard
any
of
King's writing. Yeah, it's like that sort of courtship, and I like this courtship so much. Like, Sadie is one of my favorite characters. Like, I really can't say enough about her.
Those are my two favorite romances. The two you just named.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't want to jump to my own themes and analysis for this. Is why I love this book, but it really is like the inverse of the Dead Zone, as we've been discussing from episode 1, because those are the two relationships I love. And I think when I first read this book, I can't read this right now. I have to wait until later. I can't
hold off.
That's
hold
my
your
tease.
Horses.
That's my tease. But I also just love, what is a relationship without some sort of chemistry, and dialogue is the best way to present that. And when I was reading it, it really, like, King kind of becomes like Lawrence Kasdan a little bit. Like, there's some dialogue here. It's like on page 341. It's Jake's like, I took the chair and set it firmly aside. Miss Dunhill, Sadie, if I ever saw a woman who could use a cold beer, that woman is you. Come with me. Thank you, she said. I'm so sorry. My mother told me never to throw myself at men, but I've never learned. Like, that's just so much like, it's like, kind of reminds me of just like the whimsy of like Raiders of the Lost Ark, or even just the early Han and Leia interactions that you had in there. And that sells you alone too, because it's like, it could be so lame and just so obvious, but there's knowing that both of them are pretty much holding back, but then seeing the flirting happen, that to me is real. That's why
it becomes
I call
like
bluff.
inevitable. You know, it's like that neither one of them want to, because they both have other things. They both have other missions, but it's that fate just keeps pulling them together.
Yeah. Could I say, do you think it's intentional that her last name being Dunhill, which is a famous brand of cigarettes from this time period?
Oh, really?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Dunhills. Yeah, a pack of Dunhills. Like Hunter S. Thompson would smoke Dunhills. But there is a quality of, the thing that you love is also killing you.
Yeah.
Hinting there. So
interesting.
That's just my take.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an accident that that's her last name.
Yeah. I mean, she smokes cigarettes too, which is...
I think she makes an offhand comment about a Dunhill with a Dunhill at one point, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I love how it opens the door for Jake to be able to kind of, sneak in a few, hey, I'm from a different era. being like, oh, one day schools will be integrated and this will actually not be able to. It's just at that point you're seeing that Jake is actually, opening himself up to her in subtle ways, and it's again, the pacing here is incredible.
Well, and it also makes the section that we were talking about earlier about the bathroom, it's not just a one-off. Like, this is kind of woven into King's story. It's not like upon editing he realized he needed to say something about racism.
Yeah.
You know, this is something that Sadie cares about and that he cares about too.
Yeah. And I think even from her perspective of, you know, we never asked, like, does she fall in love with him instantly? You know, and I think there is an attractive quality that Jake possesses because he is an outsider and he is from the future. Even if you can't put your finger on it, when he first goes to Maine, they're suspicious of him because he doesn't seem like he quite fits in. So I can imagine for her, especially when we find out what her relationship status was going into this party, he must stand out in a good way as kind of very charming and kind of exotic.
Yeah.
Well, in the same way that she is not like Christy, he is not like what she's coming from. And that's probably something we're going to talk a lot more about in the next episode. But yeah.
Well, let's leave it for that. We need to get to our round robin sections. This might be the shortest section we have today because, you know, we got to do it. So Annie Wilkes, come on down and give us some misery.
She died. She just slipped away.
Slipped away! Slipped away! She didn't just slip away! You did it! 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 You murdered my misery!
Annie!
All right, misery. The stuff didn't sit too well with us. Kind of like Jake with Father Time, you know, bubbling his belly. Caffrey, did you have any misery here?
Not like for the actual writing or anything like that. I really didn't. I've said it many times before. I think this is some of his strongest prose.
Yeah.
It's so lean, even though he's crafting an epic. I mean, this is such a dumb thing to criticize at this point, but you know, I'm a little tired of all the 19 coincidences by now.
I know.
I just feel a little cliche, but although I do have to remind myself that this was written during a time when it hadn't been around that long.
Right.
It's just on page 328. It ends talking about the Oswalds here. In Minsk, there were newlyweds. Leah and Marina had been man and wife for exactly 19 days.
Yeah.
And it's just like a little dumb, almost fake stinger to end a subchapter on. But I don't know, like whatever, who cares? King can have his 19 Dominion. He's earned that. And the writing's not bad. It's just like I just get a little tired seeing the 19s here and there. That's about it though. I didn't have any it's sentences or passages that I thought were badly written here. I really didn't.
This is a good thing.
It is.
Jen.
Yeah, the only thing I had was the section where the landlord's talking about Noah, and not because I think it's badly written or because I don't think King should have included it. I think he should. It just was hard to read when he's talking about the biblical cause for racism, which, you know, and again, not criticizing the fact that it is there. It was just unpleasant for me to experience as a reader.
Fligger?
Yeah, I think I agree with Capri that 19 in that instance was a little forced. But to balance it out, when he's in central Florida on the west coast of Florida, there's a famous highway, Highway 19, and it gets mentioned in the text. So which was interesting, but it's also, as I'm reading it, I'm like trying to do the map in my head of like, wait, is that correct? The distances he's describing?
Yeah.
Well, is the Magic 19 cribbage hand, is that real?
I was wondering about
How
that
to play
too.
cribbage?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Because I was like, well, maybe that's where 19 came from.
Yeah.
He's been a cribbage fan
Well,
this whole time.
because you know he played hearts in college, so he's in two games. So you know,
I don't know if I dislike this. I just thought it was kind of funny. On 252, he compares Chaz Freddy to like a Tolkien dwarf.
I know.
It was like I just kind of laughed a little bit just because a Tolkien dwarf is such a specific thing, and King references Tolkien all the time. But that was just, at least I don't even know if I would put that in misery. It was just kind of like a funny little observation.
Jen.
I remembered one that I did not like. I didn't like the Mrs. Fratty being super, super fat, and how she turned around to present one of Maine's largest backsides.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. He can't.
Is that in the same section as the dwarf? Like he looked like a dwarf.
Yeah.
Next to
It
her?
is. Yeah, I think
Okay,
it might be even on the same
I didn't write down the
page,
context. I just wrote down Tolkien dwarf.
The
and
only
it's not as bad as he has been about that.
No,
in the
I mean,
past,
no.
but
I mean,
honestly
it's
didn't like it.
more supposed to be just a visual joke at that point.
Yeah.
But the one I did have, and this is minor, but it was something that was like, okay, But on page 235, he's like, I next went to the Derry Daily News website. It cost me considerably more to access their archives, $34.50. But within a matter of minutes, I was looking at the front page of the issue for the 1st of November 1958. Why do we need to know that? Well, who cares if it costs $34.50? It's like, I like details and stuff, but it's just like, and I guess he's trying to stress that, look how easy it is to look up information now that I'm back versus, back then. But I just found the specificity of it just to be so kind of like, all right, whatever.
Uh-huh.
There's one other quote that I thought was kind of stood out as kind of clumsy, but when the teachers are getting drunk at the wedding, somebody says they're leaving Sobriety City on the Alcohol Express.
Yeah.
Chugga. Sorry.
Any
Blame
other,
the mono. Any
other misery? We're good.
I think this is
a
a really
well-written
solid.
section.
Yeah, it's very good book. It's not a lot to criticize.
I know. Just, hey, good thing. All right. Well, now that we got the messy stuff out of the way, let's bask in the sunlight coming from the word processor of the gods.
We're gonna make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
All right, Caffrey, you go first.
Okay. All right. So I foreshadowed this already with talking about how much I like these theater chapters. Vince Knowles was never going to be an actor. What he was going to be most likely was a salesman at Jodie Chrysler Dodge, like his father. But a great performance can lift all the actors in a production, and that had happened tonight. Vince, who in rehearsals had only once or twice achieved even low levels of believability, mostly because his ratty, intelligent little face was Steinbeck's George Milton, had caught something from Mike. All at once, about halfway through Act 1, he finally seemed to realize what it meant to go rambling through his life with Lenny as your only friend, and he had fallen into the part. Now, watching him push an old felt hat from props back on his head, I thought that Vince looked like Henry Fonda in The Grapes of Wrath. I think that's just such an excellent description of how someone can be elevated by an amazing, exceptional actor and just captures the high school theater experience. I mean, I could read that whole section on Of Mice and Men, and I feel like it would fit word processor. But yeah, that's kind of my MVP passage for this whole part 3.
Nice.
Well, I have a similar one that is on the very next page. And, there are 4 sections in this book that make me cry every time. And this is the first one. And it is part of the play, too. On page 327, Mike was gone. The stage was gone. Now it was only the 2 of them. And by the time Lenny was asking George to tell him about the little ranch and the rabbits and living off the fat of the land, half the audience was weeping audibly. Vince was crying so hard he could hardly deliver his final lines, telling poor stupid Lenny to look over there. The ranch they were going to live on was over there. If he had looked hard enough, he could see it. The stage lensed slowly to full dark. Cindy McComas, for once running the lights perfectly. Bertie Jameson, the school janitor, fired a blank cartridge. Some woman in the audience gave a little scream. That sort of reaction is usually followed by nervous laughter, but tonight there was only the sound of people weeping in their seats. Oh, it gives me chills. Otherwise, silence. It went on for 10 seconds, or maybe it was only 5. Whatever it was, to me, it seemed forever. Then the applause broke. It was the best thunder I ever heard in my life. The house lights went up. The entire audience was on its feet. The front 2 rows were reserved for faculty, and I happened to glance at Coach Borman, damned if he wasn't crying too. It's so good. It's one of those moments of pure joy,
Yeah, love that.
Flieger.
I have just a couple of short ones, but Jake comments that I saw something even more beautiful than a sense of humor, an appreciation for life's essential absurdity.
Yeah.
I think there's almost like an Oscar Wilde element to that sort of observation. And then one more, just on the musings of sometimes the things presented to us as choices aren't a choice at all.
Yeah.
It ties to this ka of fate element of what could be happening.
He's got a lot of good mantras in this one.
I do find myself drawn to those kind of like meditative, quick shots that he does, and he's very good at them, and he peppers his writing with it.
Like, yeah, he just like pops these out. Like life's simplest answers are often the easiest to overlook. Like, that's fucking great. Like, come on.
And I say on the subject of love at first sight, I'm with the Beatles. I believe it happens all the time. I love when King references
rock and roll
music.
Yeah. I'm gonna keep it to one, but the I mentioned how I loved the time in the woods, and on page 270, there's a great run. I'm not going to read all of it just because we're strapped for time right now, but it starts out as, those 5 weeks may have been the best of my life. I saw no one but the couple who ran the local store, where I bought a few simple groceries twice a week, and Mr. Winchell, who owned the cabins. He stopped in on Sundays to make sure I was okay and having a good time. Every time he asked, I told him I was, and it was no lie. He gave me a key to the equipment shed, and I took a canoe out every morning and evening when the water was calm. I remember watching the full moon rise silently over the trees on one of those evenings, and how it beat a silver avenue across the water, while the reflection of my canoe hung below me like a drowned twin. A loon cried somewhere, and was answered by a pal or a mate. Soon others joined the conversation. I shipped my paddle and just sat there 300 yards out from shore, watching the moon and listening to the loons converse. I remember thinking if there was a heaven somewhere, and it wasn't like this, then I didn't want to go. Yeah, it goes on from there, and it's just a hell of a passage where he just really kind of gets to lean in on the natural aspects of Maine. And God damn it, I think I read that one 2 or 3 times over.
I had that section too.
It's just so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, all of this driving, all this sightseeing, it's been great. I mean, we've got good tunes, we've had good food, certainly good living under the 50 sun. But I don't know if you saw along the way down into the south, we passed at least 24 cemeteries, some big, some way up on a hill, some so small you'd blink and miss it. And I know you all did. But this one, we've got to stop at. So grab your ever-ready flashlights. Make sure they work, for Christ's sake, because it's time to get out and stretch our legs in the cemetery.
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond that cemetery ain't human at all.
All right. Scariest moment for each of us. Jen, you got one?
Yeah, I feel like y'all are going to talk about the big one, so I'll just say how hot it is in Jodie, and them talking about like it's like 90 degrees or like without an air conditioner. Just every time they talk about it being hot and no air conditioning.
Oh, I had that too.
Yeah. Also the part where he's like dressing his head and he's talking about pressing the gauze into the laceration just freaks me out.
Gross stuff. Caffrey.
Mine was the yellow card man slitting his throat. I don't think there's a ton of cemetery in this section. And honestly, in this, well, I don't know. Some of the Derry stuff was pretty creepy, but I don't. It's one of my favorite King books. I don't know if it's the scariest King book.
Oh, definitely.
Or at least not for reasons that we think are traditionally scary. So that's mine, is the throat slitting.
Flieger.
I think forgetting to return library books is pretty scary.
I mean,
the library policeman.
That is terrifying.
But I do think seriously, the finding out while calling the librarian that his place burned down, I think that's
creepy.
Pretty fucking scary.
Yeah. I would
Didn't just burn down, like exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's something I don't really forget. Like, even if I'm having fun with Sadie, I'm still in the back of my mind being like, they fucking burned down my house. Like, is this going to happen? It's like in Casino when he keeps talking about like turning the key in the car or whatever. I just imagine that would be me my whole life. Like, be like, all right, well, here we are. Now that's it.
Never go look at dresses the same again.
No. The suicide in the street's pretty rough.
Yeah. Yeah, it just is out of nowhere,
That whole section.
That poor lady, too.
I know. It's just all of it is like when he's like getting away from there, and then they're like, "Oh, you don't want to stick around for the cops and all." It's just like, no, I don't want to stick around in general. Like, King does a really good job in just showing, like, yeah, this is probably the darkest corner you could possibly find in this area. So yeah,
I love the response too of like, yeah, we're all passing through.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be here, but she has to stay and deal with it.
It's just a rough dose of reality right there. All right, well,
we have the book depository.
We do.
I thought somebody else was going to say that.
Well, yeah, go for the depository.
Creepy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read just a little bit. Okay. So this is the voice he hears. Come on in, the 6th floor window whispered. Take a look around. The place is empty now. The skeleton crew that works here in the summer has gone home. But if you walk around to the loading dock by the railroad track, you'll find an open door. I'm quite sure of that. After all, what is there here to protect? Nothing but school books, and even the students they're meant for don't really trust them. Don't really want them. As you know well, Jake, so come in. Come in for the 6th floor. In your time, there's a museum here. People come from all over the world, and some still weep for the man who was killed and all he might have been. But this is 1960. Kennedy's still a senator, and Jake Epping doesn't exist. Only George Amberson exists, a man with a short haircut and a sweaty shirt and a pulled-down tie, a man of his time, so to speak. So come on up. Are you afraid of ghosts? How can you be when the crime hasn't happened yet?
Yeah, that again, he's so good at that
I
sort
know.
of that zone, the zone
And
of
I
terror.
love- Yes, and I love the connection to the Kitchener Ironworks too, because
Yeah.
it's like such a tangible thing, part of it too.
Yeah. I think all this spooky talk has made me hungry, and you know what that means. It's time for a slice of pound cake.
After all you've been taught, everyone isn't bad, Mama. Everything isn't a sin. Come to your closet and pray. Ask to be forgiven. He's a nice boy, Mom. You like him. You really like him, Mama.
All right, quick round robin. We're going to start with someone I knew loves a slice of pound cake. It's Mr. Caffrey. Do you have any pound cake to call out on here?
I mean, I guess when he grabs her boob or whatever, but I don't know.
Boob fall.
It wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't very pound cakey to me.
No.
I know this is the book that pound cake comes from, but so obviously we'll get to that iconic pound cake moment in future episodes. But I don't think this book has as much for being so big. It's not like Under the Dome, which was just overflowing with pound cake crumbs. Like when I closed that book, just dry crumbs of dough fell out of it. But yeah, I really don't have much. I mean, maybe I missed a couple. I don't know. So excited to hear what the rest of you have.
Jen, do you got any?
I had the boob fall, and then I had the moment where he talks about her garter, and then like remembering her garter later. But yeah, that's it.
I have my notes. I'm like, King is clearly getting horny for Sadie. He talks about the garter top and people watching her sway. And like
he does
calling
say
him
she has good legs, which is he always
and
tells
junk in the
Sadie-
trunk.
Yeah.
Oh, junk in the trunk's very bad. I think what it is that it's not that there isn't lust in this book, and that it's not that there isn't sex in this book, but he's not writing about it very goofily. He's not writing about it very lecherously. It's just it's pretty tasteful for the most part.
And this I like kind of the Lebowski element of this, but he's like, Sadie had, in the parlance of our times, a really good build.
Mhm.
And then there's one other thing just in the comment of dating like a tall person. The quote, "It's nice to be walking with a tall girl and still be taller." And I think that's like speaks to like fragile male ego of being like, I'm tall, but I just want to make sure that I'm taller.
Yeah.
Hey, short girls are cool too.
Oh yeah, no. Hey,
from about 5'2".
Yeah, Sammy's like 5'3". I always joke with her saying that she's shorter than Danny DeVito, and then she looked it up and we found out that she's not actually shorter than Danny DeVito.
Wow, what a charmer, Mike.
I know. Hey, that's
How did
why
she
I
fall
always.
for you?
I know. God,
My mom's 4'11". She might be.
Oh wow.
She's still taller than Danny DeVito. I guess Danny DeVito's only 4'10".
Yeah, the women in my family tend to run tall. Like I have several aunts that
Really?
are over 6 feet tall.
Oh, land of giants over there.
Yeah, freaks.
Must be nice.
Bunch of freaks.
I have one. On page 332, Mimi said, "The old fella loves me quite a lot more than I love him, but I like him plenty. And at the risk of embarrassing you, even ladies who've reached a certain plateau of maturity aren't averse to a nice boink on a Saturday night."
I love it. I love it. It's Saturday night. That's very 50s.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it's Saturday. Let's put the twin beds together.
Yeah.
Do some boinking.
Yeah.
Let's do some premarital boinking, baby.
Yeah. Wait.
I have one more of my notes, but I think it might be a little bit ahead of where we read, but they refer to a student walking away after being interrupted, like during a hand job, as doing the blue ball scuttle.
Yeah, that's you're this is a
spoiler
big
alert.
sin.
Sorry.
Big sin in King's Dominion.
Sorry, I wasn't exactly sure where the cutoff was.
You know what? You're like
Stay
the kid that grabs the cookie off of the the cookie sheet before it's cooled down.
Before the pound cake's ready to be devoured.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
You
like
grab
all
the pound
mushy
cake
and
before
melting
it
in your
can
mouth,
sit
and
this
you're
big.
like,
We'll have some good pound cake coming up.
oh, we
Oh,
will.
yeah,
We
there's
will.
a lot of
That's a
pound
good
cake.
tease. That was a good tease, and fitting because we all are gonna have blue balls about it now. So
I know. So we're about to do the blue ball scuttle.
wait, do you hear that? I hear a twinkling in the distance. It's the sounds of fuck, King's Dominion.
There's another world out there. I know there is.
Well, last week we had our longest session here, and now that it's in its rightful place, which is the penultimate section, let's go around robin as usual. What King's Dominion did you know? We don't have to read any sections. We can just describe them. Flieger, you go first.
Let me. The WKIT King's radio station in Bangor.
Yeah.
The
right.
strip club is named the Holly.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think who sent? That. Did you? Somebody? Maybe it was Justin that sent it to us in the he sent it to me. I was like, "This is interesting." But yeah, because Holly wasn't even a character yet at that point. So
she's moonlighting as an exotic dancer.
Maybe this is where he got the idea.
Yeah.
Like, remember that strip club?
I was wondering if this is kind of a big one, but I can't confirm it. I was wondering if John Cullum was related to, if Andy Cullum was related to John Cullum from Dark Tower, because they're both in Maine. I don't know age wise. I guess they could be siblings, maybe. I mean, he uses the same last names all the time. We talk about Coleslaw also, Michael Coleslaw versus Marty Coleslaw. Always fun to speculate, although there's no way to confirm that, of course.
No, it's like the Dorgan.
Yeah, Drogan,
yeah.
Dorgan,
yeah.
Oregon, Drogan, yeah.
Jen.
I got a lot.
I spoiled something coming up ahead, but yeah.
Oh, so I already talked about the wager from the ledge, and then we mentioned the Paul Bunyan statue, the standpipe, and then we also have Jake climbing the wall of a cemetery, like Louis Creed climbs the wall of a cemetery in Pet Sematary. We have in Derry, we keep ourselves to ourselves, which King has said his mom said about her own cancer, I think, on writing, like, I like to keep myself to myself. And then we have, like Billy Summers, a novel that's meant to be a cover become an actual thing. I think they mentioned that they are playing a team from Arnett, a football team, which is where Stu Redman comes from.
Texas.
And then we've got the truck driver who almost crashes into Jake, seems to be controlled by some other force. Again, like Pet Sematary, like the truck that kills little baby. Well, spoiler. And then we also have the loons talking to each other across the lake, which is like their raft.
Yeah. And Pet Sematary too. He mentions loons in Pet Sematary, I think, as well.
He does, yeah. Oh, yeah, the loons are in the...
screamed. Last lines of a short story.
Yeah.
But then they're also in the Little God Swamp, I think, too. Yeah.
Something about loons.
I've got a... This is me stretching it a little bit. It gives us more room 2 through 7. So in 294, he says, little changes at first, maybe, but as the Bruce Springsteen song tells us, from small things, baby, big things one day come, which is from small things, big things one day come, this song. And what's the chapter or the section called that we're in? Living in the Past. And the boss also has a song called Living in the Future.
That's true.
Which is an excellent song off of Magic, let me look up when Magic came out.
2007.
Yeah, probably not too long before this, right?
Yeah.
What's the actual date for it?
Because by then he had probably released like 3 albums like that. So it was like probably Magic, Working on a Dream, and maybe Wrecking Ball.
Magic was it was September 25th, 2007.
Yeah.
And 11/22 was what was the exact date?
It's like November 2011, I think.
November 8th of 2011. Yeah, so a few years before. But hey, Magic came out only 4 days before Stephen King's birthday. So there you go.
Maybe he was celebrating.
And actually, Bruce Springsteen's also a Libra, I believe. Bruce Springsteen's birthday is September 23rd.
Oh, how about that?
Jim Henson's a Libra too, and my wife's a Libra.
All these great creators. Yeah.
Corey's birthday, September 23rd. Huh.
Really? Same as the boss.
My wife is my hero. That's a very funny way of phrasing it.
Oh, I mean, like
it's very it's very cute. I'm just busting your chops.
All right, I'll round out some more here just to close this out. So they mentioned apple picking in Castle Rock. Didn't know that was a thing for Castle Rock, to be honest with you. He references in one of the quotes I did, Peyton Place, which is an influence on Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
Marguerite Oswald's appearance, we talked about that being another mean mom. Mimi encourages Jake to publish a book under a pseudonym, like Bachman. We also get some Crow's Dominion, where Jake, to deal with the stress and anxiety of hearing Ellen's call, He goes in the bathtub and holds himself a lot like the father figure does in Cameron Crowe Say Anything. We also have some Jaws Dominion. So,
Wait, that was like a big stretch. He's connecting to Cameron Crowe.
Yeah, just a Cameron Crowe. We get some Dominion here.
Like Mike's Dominion.
Oh, there's some good Dominion that I'm excited for.
We get some Jaws Dominion, the Narragansetts, the beer that they drink. Also, some REM Dominion with Orange Crush. That's what Jake orders at one point. There's a Spinal Tap reference, which is cute because Rob Reiner's is his directorial debut. He went up to do, Stand By Me in Misery and founded Castle Rock. There's also Seinfeld Dominion and Minsk, which is, Rochelle, a young girl's strange erotic journey from Milan to Minsk, which technically is connected to Stephen King because Castle Rock Entertainment does Seinfeld. So
Rochelle.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Rochelle, what are we gonna do with you?
What are you gonna do? I love when it's like, when he goes, it's from Milan to Minsk, and then Jerry's like, Minsk? Like it's so stupid.
Seinfeld's fake movie titles are
so
the
good.
best.
They're so good. And then I have one King site, which is that Jake says that he likes his fries crispy, salty, and a little overdone. It's a little specific, so it makes me think that King likes his French fries like that too. And then I was thinking, like, what fast food joint, if you wanted it fast, would fit their fries fit the crispy, salty, and a little overdone?
Maybe Five Guys. I don't know.
I think Five Guys might be good. Yeah,
Five Guys sounds similar. Like in it, they're it's like a thing with their fries, right?
It's too heavy though.
Yeah,
Wendy's has the best fries. I don't know if they would fit that criteria.
I do like Wendy's fries. Yeah,
I'm not a big French fry guy. I gotta say.
You don't like
Really?
potato chips either.
I don't like potato
Fries
chips
are my
either.
favorite.
Sounds like you don't like potatoes.
Kind of, but can I say one Dominion, baseball Dominion?
Yeah.
We have Jake channeling Stephen King's thoughts when he says, back then, baseball was played like it was meant to be played in the daylight.
Yeah.
I did like that. I almost pulled that for a word processor.
Is
So
that
that was
like night games were a later thing, right?
It's a very famous, I won't get too into it, but like a legal controversy was the Cubs having to install lights so that they could play night games. Wrigley Field famously did not have lights, so the games had to be played during the day.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, there's a whole thing in the A League of Their Own series about like the lights and like you turn off the lights to sabotage one team or something. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, didn't know that. The more you know, you always learn something on the Losers Club, right?
That's true. Yeah.
And
Hopefully you can parse some bit of knowledge from 4-hour recording.
I was going to say, it's funny. Right before this, I had said, I'm not going to say how long this is going to be because anytime I say it's too short, it goes long. And lo and behold, the longest episode to date so far for the series. Congratulations.
Really?
Everyone.
Longer than the longest one for 11/22 or longest?
Yeah, longest one for
the whole
11/22. It's getting up there for the longest
It's
episode we've
close.
ever done is for the Talisman. That's
We're coming for you, Dan
Man, was
Carlin.
that long?
Yeah.
I was on that episode, I think. Was that
Yeah.
4 hours?
Yeah, it's a long one. But look, usually we have our final thoughts, and we're gonna get it there. We're now only 3 episodes away, which makes this the halfway point. So what's next? Well, next Friday we are back with our 4th episode, Sadie and the General, which is the largest section we'll be covering in our run at over 200 pages. God, I can't imagine how long that fucking episode is going to be.
Yeah. Now, wait, is that about Sadie and the cat from Cat's Eye?
No,
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Mhm.
They,
Okay, cool.
King
Just
brought
checking, yeah.
King brought General back, and
It's a really cool Easter egg.
Well, it's a
That's
prequel
cool.
technically because
Yeah.
this is going to be in the 50s, or 60s. But yeah, so we got that section. Start reading it fast because it's a long one. Who's going to be joining us? Who is going to be joining us? 3 constants. You're just going to have to tune in to find out. For now, though, be sure to follow us on socials for any updates. I'm talking Instagram, Twitter, X, Facebook, or you can join our Patreon for more content beyond 11/22. This month, we are covering the Manglers, a part of our Lobstrosities. We're going to have a Kingmas celebration and a Jen's Character Corner where you're going to be talking about
Sadie Dunhill.
Oh yeah, so it's some topical, timely stuff. But look, we're kind of killing it. I think giving you, early in the year we got a lot of complaints from people on Facebook like, where are the book episodes? I think this year we did pretty good. Every month we've pretty much done a book episode, and the fact that you're getting 6 episodes on 11/22, 63, not to mention the 2 accompanying interview episodes that Randall's done, that's 8. I think that's pretty good. So I think, if you're feeling hospitable, give us some bright red Pennywise clown noses over at Apple Podcasts, or even rate us over at Spotify. Spotify has a really cool feature now. You can actually do like a Q&A thing. So if you want to tell us about each episode, go for it. Once again, thank you to Charlie Lawrence of The Most for most excellent theme song, the Friends song. And as always, our trusty editor, Kyle Rosevich, who always keeps us along the beam. Speaking of which, we'll be seeing you back on the beam in 2 minutes, or for us time travelers, over long days.
And
pleasant
nights.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. But you know you want somebody to treat you good.
This is the end of our show. For now. Tune in next week. If you like our programming, consider searching for other bloody disgusting podcasts, such as Creepy, Horror Queers, The Boo Crew, SCP Archives, Nightlight, Margaret's Garden, and more.